Good evening, all, and welcome to the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge this wonderful Wednesday evening. So, a packed show for you all to enjoy this evening. We've got, all being well, our namesake, Sir Tom Broadbent, our Lord and Saviour, is going to be joining us very soon. Charlie Austin will be joining us from Down Under with his latest instalment of Chazetta Football Australia. We've got Keelan and Honor joining us from Swindon Town Women's Football Club, following a very exciting week of announcements coming out of the women's operation at the county ground. We've got a reaction to the Rochdale hammering. We've got a preview of Stockport County. We've got the latest on Tyree Simpson rumours. We've got Harry McCurdy, disciplinary news that's broken this week. There's been rumours abound in relation to Lewis Ward. And we've also got details of the next big Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge kick around. So a packed show ahead, and you lucky devils, you've got a wonderful panel with me tonight to enjoy that content with me and you. So first up, and by certainly no means least, Joe, good evening, buddy. How are you?
Good evening, mate. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. A very, very busy week. And yeah, very, very busy show ahead, mate. So strap yourself in, Joe, as we go for it hell for leather. Martin, always a pleasure, never a chore. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. I'm not going to lie. It's been a long week already, so I am tucked up nicely in bed, ready for this.
You're a beautiful, saucy red and white devil. The thought of you tucked up in bed helping me deliver this show, God, that's going to do nothing but warm me cockles, Martin.
I'll send you some pictures, Hannahs. Don't you worry.
And we've got the champ. How are we, Ellis?
Evening, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on again.
Oh, hey, listen, you're part of the furniture now, buddy. After your live match day show debut on Saturday, how did you enjoy that?
Great. Yeah, it was great. Looking forward to the next one.
I'm looking forward to being followed by every single member of your family, Ellis, by the way. Please do send my best to the Holloway family, and I thank them.
We're getting them all in.
I thank them for their interest in my personal Twitter account. I'm sorry that there's not any sort of funny dog gags or GIFs on there. It's all Swindon Town hyperbole, buddy, I'm afraid. And they're also strapped in for the ride. So as I say, we're hopeful that we're going to be joined shortly by Sir Tom himself. Subject to some official South Shields Football Club duties up there. While we're waiting for Tom to join us, I think probably a sensible thing for us to do because we're going to be joined by Charlie Austin at 9:30 tonight. But in the meantime, I think we'll jump straight into a little bit of a roundup from Saturday, because there's been some fallout from Saturday's 3-0 drubbing of Rochdale. Mostly positive, I'm delighted to say, but there's been some negative on there as well. I think we said on Saturday that it was one of those results where we're kind of, in many ways, damned if we do, damned if we don't. After an indifferent start is probably the best way to put it. Ellis, you were there with me on Saturday, so I don't necessarily want to just regurgitate our content from our match day show, but no doubt you've seen some of the fallout that I'm talking about, both on the socials and in the press. So what do you make of it all, buddy? Is there is it one of those? I mean, I've heard Saturday being described as a bit of a free hit, but all the pressure is on Stockport. So how does that resonate with you, Chief?
Well, it was all, we spoke about this on Saturday, obviously, on Twitter. All of the response was going to be, oh, well, it's only Rochdale. But I think the way that we played as a whole is how we need to play every game. So, I thought we played very well Saturday. A few faults you could probably pick out. Like Ronan Darcy playing right back, he did a great job, but a few positional errors that he started with. But yeah, like I said, overall, I think it was a great game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption, Ellis. I mean, Martin, just to build on what Ellis is saying there, I'll get your view on this. I mean, from 1 to 11 for Swindon Town on Saturday. my take on it was a pretty mighty performance from the Reds. We got the goal early doors. We didn't necessarily kind of set the place on fire for the remainder of the first half, when I think both teams were kind of evenly matched and certainly probably matching each other in the fitness stakes. But then I noticed, obviously, we've come out in the second half and we scored quickly again, which pretty much ended, for me, almost ended the game as a competition. I didn't think Rochdale sort of gave us anything to really worry about. And then towards, obviously, the end of the game, we've got our third goal. And essentially in every department, I just thought we overpowered them. And I thought there wasn't a single player out in that starting lineup that kind of really put a foot wrong. Martin Ellis has mentioned Ronan Darcy, so I guess it's two questions. First, you agree with my first point, but also on the second one, I thought Ronan Darcy's performance going forward was so good that it kind of, I'm not fussed about the odd positional error, which is only going to be corrected with experience and time in that position. What's your take on it all?
So the first question, yeah, I do completely agree. Just the fact of how different the performance was from Orient, I've got to see the games previously, as you know, but it was just completely the opposite. I know the opposition was nowhere near as good as Orient are, but you can only be what's in front of you. And we talked on that Tuesday night about how we didn't seem to be playing through the thirds like we had been the season before, and how the talk was pre-season. But just for us to have that ball on the floor and pass it around like we did, the movement, it looked so much slicker. You could see there has been progress. And if we can build on that, I think it can only lead to positives. And then Ronan Darcy, for us to play out the back and have someone like that who's so comfortable on the ball, his range of passing, his movement, the attacking positions he was getting into, I was so impressed with him. And you're right, he was out of position a few times defensively when we're out of possession, but that's his first game at right back. So I think it can be forgiven. And we're on the training pitch. He's young. He's got time to develop and learn. I don't know if he enjoyed playing there or not, but he's only going to improve. And I think if we're a possession-based team, we kind of want someone like that on the pitch to help us in the attacking.
Yeah. And I think, let's be honest, Ronan Darcy's not moaned about it once this week. I mean, yeah, he's mentioned about that was all new to him. So that's obviously interesting. It's clearly not something that he's got in his kind of career locker. Joe, bringing you in at this point for just sort of like the final say on Rochdale, if you will. All I was gonna, one of the things that sort of I've heard being mentioned this week was that at times Rochdale cut us open. I think they had their chances. Do you think, am I underplaying it in dismissing any notion that they, quote, cut us open or made us look in any way, shape or form or embarrassed us? I mean, from what I could see, it was two teams going at it. The gaffer had talked about the fact that, actually Rochdale have got, last year, Rochdale, I think they were second only to Swindon Town in the possession stakes. So they've got some technically sort of sound players. They were lacking cutting edge at the top and back end of the pitch. And that's obviously what's cost them last year. I think this year they created chances. I mean, I think, certainly at the county ground last year, they didn't look like a really, really bad side. But a lot was made of the fact that they had a couple of chances, Joe. What was your take on it? Were you expecting a complete shutout and Sol to do even less than what he actually ended up doing on Saturday? What did you think?
If I'm going to be completely honest from the off, my girlfriend, in all her wisdom, booked a show in the West End for 2:30 on Saturday. So, I was getting tutted at by people surrounding us when I was checking Bet365 for the score every 5 seconds. So I've only seen the game, obviously, through a statistical point of view. I've seen the goals, I've seen a bit of highlights, and there was a couple of sort of first half chances, I think, earlier on in the match, which could have been down to, as you say, Ronan Darcy or players getting used to certain positions that they'd not been accustomed to. At the end of the day, we hadn't won a game before this weekend, so yeah, it's hard to say, really, isn't it? But on paper, yeah, we should be beating Rochdale, but they hadn't won a game, we hadn't won a game. It's sort of a blank canvas, really. I think we've won this game now, so maybe we can have more of a expectation moving forward. Hopefully the wheels are sort of in motion now, but it's so early on in the season as well. They've lost all their games, but they could be mid-table. They could go for playoffs. You don't know.
Well, listen, I mean, from my point of view, I think my closing gambit, I think on Saturday was, it was, it was exciting to see Jakey Wakes continue his recent sort of emergence, if you will.
What player?
But yeah, exactly that. I mean, he's, like the Duracell bunny was the term that got used this week. He runs and runs and runs and runs. He literally thrives off of a defender's poor first touch. Thrives on any half chance, and obviously that's how the goals come about on Saturday before any of us had even had a chance to take our first sip of Bovril, proverbial or otherwise. So I think that was exciting. But then obviously we had Saidu Khan was amongst the assists again. We've already mentioned Ronan Darcy. I thought Angus MacDonald probably had one of his more capable games as he continues to get himself back to full fitness and impose himself again on this division and on this team. Tom Clayton I thought was absolutely outstanding. I think as you work through that side and you start to look at our signings this season, for me, what's really encouraging, and again, I'm not going to get overexcited because yes, I understand it was Rochdale, but it wasn't just about Jakey Wakes. So 3-0, we'll no doubt have a little tuck back into that later, just to give sort of Stockport a little bit more context. But of course, tonight, the start of our show is all about the man, the legend, our Lord and Saviour, Sir Tom Broadbent himself. Tom, good evening, buddy. How are you?
Evening, mate. I'm all good. How are you?
Oh, listen, it's always good to hear your dulcet tones, Tom. It's always good to hear you, pal. How are you? How's life in the north?
I'm loving it, mate. Loving it. It's just nice to be home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously, disappointing for me. Done all the pre-season, and then the Friday before the first game, I got a little niggle in my quad. So I ain't even played in the league yet. So I missed the first 4 games, but I'm hoping to be back for Saturday.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, obviously, there's been some people have been asking, Tom, because without meaning to do any kind of disrespect to your new club at all, and we'll come on to this to explain why I'm saying this and not causing them any disrespect. But when you've popped up at South Shields, so many question marks were posed as to why. I think just on the surface of things, South Shields isn't a team that just immediately pops in your head as one of the movers and shakers in non-league. And
Yeah.
You're obviously held to such a high degree, both in terms of what you did for us at Oxford, but also because people just know you're very, very capable operator at our level as well. So to see you crop up at South Shields, there's obviously a much bigger story, Tom. So we kind of wanted to get in that a little bit tonight. But obviously South Shields, Northern Prem, 7th tier effectively. How did the move come about, Tom?
So obviously I had offers higher up, but a lot of them were like, I sort of made a decision quite early on that I just wanted to get up here and sort of settle. Do you know what I mean? At my age, obviously not I'm not old. Do you know what I mean? But I just wanted to sort of get home, get settled, not be living too far away from home. And obviously it's limited options up here. But obviously I had offers a couple of hours away from home, and obviously when I was at Eastleigh, I was living sort of 5.5 hours away, and I just thought I can't be dealing with living in like a clubhouse and things like that anymore. And obviously the offers that I was getting weren't a lot better than what Shields were offering me anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously I had to put the level aside, but the project that is there, like the ambition of the club, everything, like it's a full-time team still anyway, the only full-time team in that division.
Yeah,
the managers, Kevin Phillips, everything's in place. They've got their own training ground. The whole project and what they're doing there, it's exciting to be part of as well.
Yeah, and a very, very wealthy owner, Tom, you've got there as well, Jeff Thompson.
Yeah.
And I don't just want to talk about his wealth, but I mean, a very, very, very successful businessman in his own right.
Yeah.
Arguably, I mean, I haven't literally done sort of, the full surgery on his financials, but certainly it looks like the companies are turning over the same kind of revenues that our own Clem Morfoon is turning over, to give people an idea of scale. And he's part of the fixtures and fittings in the area as well, isn't he? Very well regarded man, Jeff Thompson.
Yeah, he is. He's a really good guy as well. So, he's obviously heavily involved with everything that goes on at the club anyway. But yeah, it was kind of like I wanted to get my life sorted off the pitch as well, and it gives me a chance to get home quicker, get settled. You know, I'm doing a financial advisor course at the moment as well. I do a bit of other work on the side, so it's just, you know, I sort of just got fed up of you know, living away from home and putting my life on hold for, you know, for potentially maybe a couple of extra £100 a week or something like that, and I just didn't see the point. I just wanted to be settled and home. You know, I've signed a 3-year deal, so I'm just happy, and I'm excited to, you know, get playing and hopefully get some promotions with them as well.
Yeah. So you've mentioned. So Tom, you've mentioned your gaffer, and so in case anyone missed it, we are talking about the Kevin Phillips, aren't we? Fans, supporters of a certain age will remember Kevin Phillips getting England caps and literally being sort of goal hungry at Sunderland in particular. What's Kevin Phillips like as a gaffer and as a man? How have you found him so far? Appreciate he's your gaffer, so
yeah, no, he's really good, honestly. Like, and he joins in a little bit in training. He's still, you know, I reckon he could still put his boots on and play, especially at the level we're at as well at the minute. So yeah, he's decent. I can't complain. You know, obviously some previous gaffers I've had, so yeah.
and a legend in those parts as well. So I mean, clearly, you know, obviously iconic status at Sunderland, so not a million miles away from South Shields. So he's, you know, I guess if you're talking sort of an equivalent down at Swindon, it would literally be like, you know, Charlie Austin getting the Supermarine job, wouldn't it, or something along those lines. Hell of an appointment. Is he? I mean, in terms of his sort of technical staff or support staff, Tom, are there any other sort of names that we might recognise, or has he brought people with him from some of his old clubs, or is he literally kind of started from scratch?
No, I think he's kept the people that were there anyway. You know, and they're both very good coaches as well, so it works really well. So it's kind of like a real sort of family club. So they've kept the people involved. Yeah, it works. So, you know, hopefully we can have a successful season. You know, the squad that he's put together as well, definitely, you know, too good for that league. So, but the thing is, every team that we play against, it's like their cup final. So, you know, everyone from the outside looking in will be like, they're the only full-time team in the league, like good stadium, good pitch. They're probably thinking we want to fucking beat them. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, Tom, you'll know. I mean, you know, it's not overselling it or hyperbole on my part. I think that's one of the things that's been very difficult for Swindon. Not maybe less so in League One, but certainly in League Two. You know, it's not often that, you know, League Two clubs get to enjoy facilities quite like they get at a county ground. So I guess a similar sort of kettle of fish, really. You must be used to that.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's like, obviously, especially the only thing that I didn't sort of take into account was signing the standard of some of the pitches that you end up playing on. But our home ground's lovely, do you know what I mean? So we can play some decent stuff on it. But some of the pitches that we'll end up going to, especially in the winter, it's going to be a little bit sort of all in the air and stuff like that. So it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. But no, it's good. Like, I can't complain. I'm enjoying it. So, and like I say, I'm sort of 15, 20 minutes from the house as well. So it's perfect for me.
So if I was to ask you, Tom, like in terms of a playing standard on any given Saturday, how big a gap would you feel that it is at Shields versus, say, League Two?
What, like if Shields were going to play a League Two team, or
so if you guys, like, literally sort of, you know, we got you down to the county ground, level playing field, if you will, sort of the current sort of squad, is there a vast sort of gap given the sort of, I mean, because you're not a million miles away.
I was quite surprised at the standards, to be honest, when I signed there. Obviously I was expecting it to be, you know, not as good, but like I say, the players he's brought in, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Martin Smith as well? He's at South Shields. Yep. You know, we've got Michael Woods, Gary Liddell, all players that have played in the league. So, you know,
good players.
We're a decent side. I like to think we'd you know, give a good account for ourselves at least. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you've been wearing the armband as well, Tom. I appreciate, as you say, you've been injured, but we've all we're all retweeting pictures of you wearing the armband and your new kit.
Yeah, that was just in pre-season. Obviously, the skipper wasn't playing at the time, but yeah, it's always nice to wear it anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Well, it won't be the last time, mate. We're going to be campaigning for it.
Stretched it out a little bit for him. It's a bit baggy on him now.
You've been on those gains, mate, haven't you? You've been on those gains in the gym while you can't get out on the pitch. So listen, as you well know, Tom, we've been campaigning to try and see whether we can get up to see you guys en masse. And plans are going to be afoot. So we're going to be working closely with you on a date, which clearly dovetails with as you'll appreciate, we've been knocked out of the League Cup, which gives us an opportunity. It's a bit of a trot for a midweeker. I think what will probably happen, we'll see how the FA Cup goes. Obviously, we're likely to get to at least a semi-final this year, Tom, so you might have to be patient. But a blank FA Cup weekend or something along those lines, I think, is going to do us a treat. But mate, I promise you, the sentiment is sincere. We're going to get up to see you.
Yeah, mate, I'd love that. It'd be wicked. Can have a couple of beers and that after, because I can do that now. So
a couple, yeah, exactly. Not a couple, Tom. No. Now you're amongst the ranks of the non-league pyramid, mate. It'll be more than a couple, I assure you of that.
Have a couple before the game, pre-match, couple of beers. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, listen, Tom, what an absolute treat having you on, buddy. Thanks ever so much for coming on and giving us the update. You'll be pleased to know that we have resisted Frenchie's overtures.
Hey, there's a few of them, isn't there?
Yeah, they're all at it, mate. Yeah, they're all at it. Lewis Ward thinks that we should be renaming the show. Charlie says that we should be renaming the show. And Frenchie's applying significant pressure. So I said, as you were well aware, at the end of last season, Frenchie basically said, look, I'll tell you what, I'll give Swindon Town another year if you rename the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. And
no, he didn't say that.
I promise you he did. As God is my witness, I promise you he did. And in fact, I've got witnesses on this show, Tom Broadbent.
He gave me a threatening...
Did he sign another year anyway? He's signed another year anyway, isn't he?
Yeah, he signed on for another year, so hence he's applying the pressure. And he said it on the show. He's like, "What are you playing at?" It's like, I thought we had an agreement. So listen, Tom, we're fighting the good fight for you, mate. Don't you worry.
No, I appreciate that, mate.
Tom, as always, mate, we love you, pal. So keep in touch.
Love you too, mate. Take it easy.
All right, dude. Take care, Tom.
Yeah. Bye.
Ta-ra, mate. Bye now. Our Lord and Saviour, Joe, Martin, Ellis. What more can you say about the big man? What more can you say? Nothing more we can say, is there, than name a show after him?
He deserves it. None of the others scored against Oxford yet, so it's all about Tom Broadbent.
Well, see, this is the thing. It's like, you score against Oxford, and then you come on, you effectively score 2 against Oxford, and then you put that
challenge. Smith would have a bit of an argument there.
Well, he can argue all he likes. I think we all know the truth.
That goal doesn't happen if it isn't for Sir Tom, so he gets the credit. He gets the name of the show.
That's true. He stuck around for us, so.
And listen, as much as we all love Frenchie, he's something's got to happen this year, hasn't it? Something iconic has got to happen this year in order for us to even consider it. And even then, it would be nothing more than a passing consideration.
Just a quick one there. I see my man Vincent Harper's listening. Watch out for him in the Football League soon, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, watch out for him. Some player.
What can you tell us about Vincent Harper, Tom?
I lived with him for a year. He's like my son.
Ping his number over
some player.
Well, listen, Vincent, I see you in that listener list, mate. I see you in that list. I'll tell you what we're going to try and do right now.
Get him on.
I'm inviting you on, Vince. I'm inviting you on. Come and say hello, Vince, and tell us all about you. Because, listen, we still got a week of the window.
He's going to be nervous now, He's going to be nervous.
He'll be saying to himself, right, what can I say? What can't I say? I'm talking to the big boys from the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. What? I've got to maintain my professional boundaries. Now, come on, Vincent, don't be a shrinking violet. I quite like the idea of seeing a red and white scarf around his neck for a start. That blue and white one looks all right.
Hey, you never know. One day. He's just sent me. He's just sent me a message of crying faces. He's nervous.
Vincent,
come on, Vin.
Come on, Vincent. Listen to our sort of dulcet tones, mate. We're a safe bunch. We'll look after you, pal. That's an open invite. We just need to hear what you're all about, given Tom's really talked you up.
He said he's way too nervous to hop on.
I I should. Well, listen, Vince. Look, we'll pass your details on to the club. We'll champion you, mate. Yeah, an endorsement from Tom. That's like a hallmark of quality.
He got player of the year in that at Eastleigh last season. Really good young player. So
exciting.
Keep an eye on him. Yeah.
Tom? What position does he play?
Left back.
Left back.
Very quick, strong, good player.
Quick, strong, good player, left wing back. So we've got Ellis and Reese both out injured. We've got Fraser. Fraser's just come in. He's, to be fair, top quality. But can we argue he's now more of a centre back, lads? I think we possibly. But can we? I'm just trying to find an angle for Vincent here, because we're right. Once all the boys are fit, we're all a bit overloaded on the left hand side, aren't we?
I'll take the agent fee when Swindon sign him as well. So.
You do that, Tom. Don't you?
All right,
worry,
I'll leave
mate.
you guys to it anyway.
You're a ledge. Thanks,
Cheers
buddy.
again. See you, mate. Bye. Bye.
Ta-da now. Right, well, there you are. Wow. Agent Broadbent. So it's fascinating, though, listening to Tom, Joe, isn't it? From I think most people, I think when Tom sort of cropped up at South Shields, I think there was a certain sort of air of surprise, because South Shields that's a big step down, and I think we were all of the opinion that actually, given especially some of our deficiencies at centre back last season, that Tom's one of those players you're thinking surely you'd at least have him in the squad, would you not? And I'm not just saying that because we've named a show after him. And putting all banter aside, whether it's realistic or not that Tom would come back to Swindon Town, it was more about the level. So to see him sort of crop up at South Shields was a big surprise. But you start scratching beneath the surface, and I mean, he's mentioned it there. They've got a guy that owns South Shields that certainly would appear on paper to have sort of comparable levels of wealth to Clem Morfuni. Real good standing as a person in the community up there in the northeast. And then on top of that, you've got Kevin Phillips as a manager as well. So like if you start to look at like real ambition in the non-league levels, I mean that's saying a lot, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It's up there. I mean, on paper, like I say, you see essentially the net worth of the club in terms of who owns it. On paper, Kevin Phillips is one of the best strikers this country's seen for the last 20 odd years. I mean, it's certainly a name. It's an attractive proposition, and I think if he can get one of his hometown clubs, if you like, even one promotion, he's in the National League North. It's not a bad standard of football. Obviously, one more promotion on that, you're in the National League, which to me is very, very close, if not kind of level with League Two. So it's not a million miles away. I mean, I've got no doubt in my mind about Tom being probably the best player in that squad. Top striker, top number 9, also quite good at centre back. So, he should be all right. And by the way, anyone hasn't seen Martin Smith's strike last night? I think it was a 90th minute equaliser. I saw it on Twitter today. It was an absolute worldie.
So Martin Smith was really interesting for us, wasn't he? Really interesting because he started off, I think it was his debut, maybe the next game. Everyone was like, oh my God, we've got an absolute...
It was his debut when he hit the bar from the halfway line.
And he just sort of drifted away, didn't he? Really, and nobody could really understand why. But it was like the managers just didn't really fancy him, and he just.
I think Phil Brown liked him, didn't he? And then obviously we. No, was it Flitcroft that decided him? No, it was Phil Brown.
Yeah,
it was Phil Brown.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it was Phil Brown in the 18-19 summer, but obviously we changed manager halfway through the season. Richie Wellens brings in Canis Carroll and Danny Rose. And then that's kind of that for Martin. So he's one of those players. I think he suits a certain system. I think if anything, what you could say of Martin Smith is he knows how to strike a football. He's got an absolute thunderbastard of a right foot. So at that level, pinging shots from outside the box all day, every day, he's probably going to get about 15 goals a season.
Yeah, but then you've also got, I mean, Tom mentioned players like Woods and, Gary Liddell, vastly experienced, particularly towards the end of his career, like the lower 2 divisions. Very, very, very. So you've got some technicians in that side. And Tom was saying, and we take what Tom says on face value, but I mean, a side that is way, way, way above its level. Certainly, and not punching above its level either, like clearly above its level. But the
100%.
point
I think as well when you have.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. I was going to say when you've got professional players like my local side Farnborough last season, same tier as Broady's player now. So Broady played for Farnborough a few years back, but they had last season. They had Ricky Holmes come in from obviously ex Charlton, Barnet. They had Sam Deering come in, who was ex Oxford, and played a lot of games at National League last year. I think Mitch Brundle as well. Like they had a load of players come in who were used to playing at least a National League standard, and you can really see the difference. So I think it's probably going to be a similar story at South Shields, and with them training full time as well. I mean, that's an extra helping hand, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, look, Martin, I'll get your point of view on this. I mentioned to Tom that it's been an interesting sort of, so it's been an interesting return to League Two for us. And I had some banter with some Bradford fans last season because I mentioned that, like, typically it kind of felt like every single week we were playing a team, particularly at home. I was trying to explain our difficulties at home with what Tom said there about every game is like a cup final. You've only got to go to places like Barrow, and with all due respect to some of these clubs like Barrow, Crawley, clubs like that, we turn up at those grounds, and it's probably snobbery on my part, But I mean, obviously, I've been a fan. I've seen us play in the Premier League. I walk into grounds like Crawley. Obviously, we're there on merit, right? I get that. But I walk into those stadiums and I stand there and I just go, oh my God, here we go again. And again, like, I really don't mean to be kind of rude about those clubs. It's not me, being intentionally, offensive. It's just more a question of, like, I've kind of been to the mountaintop, the quote, the late Dr. King, I've seen paradise on the other side of it. And I kind of that I was brought up on, the Championship, what it is now as standard, the old Division 2. So for me, I can only try and reflect as a human being now. If I'm going in the stands and going, oh my God, like, look at the state of this when we go to some of the grounds I've mentioned, I can imagine what the players are saying. Now, you're a coach, Martin, right? So you'll be plugged in on more of a kind of performance level, but you get where I'm coming from. I don't mean to waffle on about it, but it's just like, it's the last season in particular. I think we got there towards the end of the year, Martin, didn't we? We kind of seemed to be getting over that. But oh my God, like, it's wears you down, doesn't it?
It does. And when you go, like, if we end up at an ex-Premier League club and we haven't been to these grounds for a long time, I feel like we're at the turning point where we start to be like, wow, this is a really nice ground. And I do kind of worry that we're gonna, if we don't get out of this league quite soon, we're gonna turn into a club where we go in a cup draw to a Championship League One club. We go, oh, this is a nice ground, and I don't want us to be that. I think you said about every team coming to us pretty much and feeling like it's a cup final because it's a better stadium than these two bigger crowds. I get that. I think especially for, like, Harrogate, was it Harrogate's first season last season, the Football League?
Yeah.
And a lot of some of their players had come up from the Conference North and into the National League and then up into League Two. So for them, that journey, and they've gone from playing in those grounds to probably not that many people, and they started to get into better stadiums, bigger crowds, and now they're in League Two. That's really going to pump them up because I guess mentally they think, wow, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I've worked this hard and now I'm a Football League player, and it will give them that extra boost. So I think that does play a big part of it. I don't think it's just the fact of, oh, this is Swindon, they used to be in the Premier League. I think it's very much, this is a big crowd, big stadium. I cannot believe I'm actually here. I've worked so hard for this.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one. We'll bring Charlie's joined us. Charlie, good evening, money. Or good morning to you. How are you down there? Hello, Charlie. You with us, bud?
I'm here. Sorry, mate. Someone's just ringing me at the same time. How are we? All good?
Yeah, not bad at all. Charlie, we had Tom Broadbent on, who's this season he's dropped down to Northern Premier, so he's playing for South Shields. Yeah. And he was making a point that there's a lot of investment going on at their football club. This will probably feel relevant to you in terms of your career path. But they've got Kevin Phillips as their manager. They've got a very, very wealthy backer. certainly akin to sort of Clem Morfuni levels of wealth. And we were saying about last season, Swindon really struggled at home. And you sort of got the feeling a lot of these League Two clubs and League Two players were coming to the county ground, and they were almost playing it like a cup final for them. As a lad that sort of made that jump up from Poole to Swindon and then kicked on, is there any truth in that, mate, or do you feel that maybe I'm overplaying that point?
There's a lot of money in non-league, Mark. There's a lot of money in long league. I know everybody thinks, oh yeah, we play in the Football League. They certainly have a League Two pay money and all this kind of nonsense. Yeah. Let me tell you. I guess so, yeah, because you come and you want to play at a big stadium and you think, right, the opportunity to play in front of a historic club in a certain way with Swindon Town, and it's the same as when you go anywhere, really. There'd been probably, 4 or 5 clubs, would there have been maybe more in League Two at the time last year?
Yeah.
That players would go to and be like, look, do you know what? This is my opportunity to shine, I guess, and that's what happens. But it goes in stages, don't it? You have that with what is it? You have that with like the non-league to League Two, and then when it comes to the FA Cup, that's why you have you get a few shocks in the FA Cup and the League Cup because lads take the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? And they are their cup finals. That happens a lot for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, you're having a busy time of it down there, mate, aren't you? Have you? So Fraser Coast, 3-day training camp. Have you set off for that yet? Are you there yet, or?
Yeah, mate. We left on Tuesday, so left Tuesday. Did 2 sessions. Yes, sorry, mate. Looking at us 6 here.
Charlie Austin pre-coffee, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, mate. Honestly, left on Tuesday. Did 2 sessions 3 sessions yesterday. Sorry, and then do the same again today, and then 1 on Friday. Then we got a game on Saturday, and then we go back now. No, it's like any training camp. We need to do it. We need to get the weekend, but we've got a quarter-final cup competition next Wednesday to play in. So it's like we need to get the work in somehow, but we also got to have one eye on the cup.
Yeah, and without being disrespectful, the sort of Football Queensland Select 11, are they going to be much of a match for Brisbane Roar? Like, what sort of competition are you expecting, buddy?
I have no idea, but I don't think they're going to be any good.
Yeah, okay. Open training sessions as well, I understand, as part of your itinerary.
It's more for like the kids. To be fair, it's mad over here. Like I found, Mark, and for everyone, like football in the schools is massive. Yeah, see all the kids playing football. And as soon as they get to like 15, 16, all the AFL people just take the best ones, the most athletic ones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then you have like then it's quite tough then because they kind of lose their way as such. But like I don't know if I mentioned it to you before, but listen, for football in this country is a big 9 months. The Socceroos qualified for the World Cup. And then next summer, the Women's World Cup's here. So if football's going to grow in this country, it's certainly going to be the next 9 months. If it doesn't, then it's got no chance.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you have to mind your P's and Q's for the opening training sessions, Charlie? If we're being really honest, like throughout your career, you've done a few of them. Are you told like, come on, lads, watch the language?
No, I mean it's like just a bit of common sense, I think, especially when there's kids about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When there's loads of kids about, it's not too bad. When there's like 10,000 fans booing you and calling you every name under the sun, I don't give a shit.
And you mentioned obviously before we speak next week, you got the small matter of the quarter. I think it was the quarterfinal against Adelaide United, right, in the Aussie Cup.
It, mate. Yeah.
A
bit tough one.
Yeah, because they're a decent lineup. Got some half decent players from what I understand.
Yeah, I think they've got a few. I think they've got a couple of Socceroos in their team, and listen, it'll be a tough game. It really will. But when you're in the cup competition, anything can happen. We need to play better opposition going towards the A-League, and then listen, we've got 4 weeks, I think, until the season starts. That's the only downside, Mark. The cup competition's great. But Jesus, it takes so long until the league starts, like October. Feels like I've been here forever. I've only been here 5 weeks, not even played you know what I mean? Just because you're back home, it's like, right, it's 5 weeks, it's 6 weeks. The season's going to start. We're ready to go. Here, it's like 9 weeks. It's like, Fucking hell, it's ages.
And Charlie, you've since sort of talking to us about Swindon Town not being able to score a goal, we've got now managed to score 5. So did you?
No, I did.
Well, obviously, we lit the touch paper on Saturday. We dispatched bottom of the table Rochdale, 3-0. Scored after all of 20 odd seconds, and then turned the screw. What? I mean, did you pick up on any coverage, mate, down under in terms of our action at the weekend?
The 3 against Rochdale, I did. The lad, here's a funny one for you, mate. So the lad who scored the first goal,
Jakey Wakes.
Yeah, I have been informed, and he wasn't very good, by the way. I've been informed by Steve Hooper that he used to be my boot boy at West Brom.
He did indeed. He's told us this, mate. He's been very open about it.
Well, he wasn't fucking any good. No, I didn't even know. No, listen, do you know what? Probably playing Rochdale come at a great time for the club, because it was a great time, but it could have been a sticky one, if it didn't. Then obviously we didn't get the result, because Rochdale, let's be honest, they're at a club that's in a sticky situation, and not a great situation at the moment. They have no manager. The players look very low, and when you come down to Swindon Town, if you're 1-0 down after 20 seconds, you think, oh, here we go again. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was a fantastic start for the club. It probably settled a lot of nerves that were in the stadium at the time. And then for the team to go on and play the way they did, move the ball around, score 3 goals at home in front of the crowd. How many was there? Was there a few there this time, Mark? Was it 8?
Good 8, yeah, good 8,500 in the ground, mate. So
yeah, that's what I mean. So that's what I mean. So it's going in the right direction. It's going in the right direction. But like I say, it's patience. You got the first one done. They won 3-0. Let's move on now. And then listen, it's a tough one on Sunday against Stockport. Like that's not going to be easy. When I spoke to you at the start of this, when I come on, Stockport are a team that pay big money. Like they pay big money in the conference last year. They really do. They're going to be up there fighting this year to try and get. I don't know how the results are, but going on the club and the money that they've been throwing about, it wouldn't surprise you that they're in the mix this year of around the playoffs or whatever. But it'd be a tough game. It's a tough place to go, Stockport. The pitch is always not the best. Like they still play at Sale rugby place, don't they? They all share the ground. I remember going there once with Bill when I was at Swindon. The game got called off. Pitch was frozen. Got called off at 7 p.m.
Oh wow,
horrendous, mate.
Yeah, I think they've had a really indifferent start. I think there's a lot of expectation on Stockport, and whether that's weighing them down or what, I'm not sure. They've basically won 1, I believe, lost 4 of their games. They've not scored a lot of goals. So, but at the same time, that you mentioned that not your vernacular, but essentially you've alluded to Rochdale being a bit of a banana skin potential on Saturday. I think Stockport away has got banana skin written all over it for me. And as you say, they pay an awful lot of money. They're going to have players there that aren't going to be bothered by there's going to be no egos involved. They're not going to be bothered by big old Swindon coming to Edgeley Park. They're going to turn the screw for sure. So well, obviously we'll keep our fingers crossed, mate. We'll finish on a family note, Charlie. Obviously delighted to see Bianca and the kids are with you now in Oz. Everyone's settled in, no hiccups, and hopefully avoiding the wildlife as well.
Yeah, mate, all good now. The kids and that are here. They're just still getting over the jet lag, which is nice. But they don't start school till October, mate. So their kids are having it off. No, so it's all good, mate. I'm pleased. Obviously, they're here now, so we can all start this adventure and a journey together. And look, who knows? Listen, it's a new adventure for a couple of years, and we'll see what happens, mate.
Hey, listen, Charlie, you go and sing some coffee, mate, and get on with your morning. An absolute treat. We'll catch up with you on Chazetta Football Australia next week, buddy.
Go on, boys. I'll catch you later, right? All the best, Marky. See you, mate.
Take care, pal. Bye now, mate.
Bye, mate. Bye.
Charlie Austin, what a boy. What a boy. Ellis, I'll bring you in. We haven't spoken to you for a bit. You're probably sitting there super quiet. He's a top lad. So you can tell that obviously he's keeping an eye on all things Swindon, not just because he comes on this show, but there really is a genuine interest there. It's must be a very, very, very exciting time for the Austin family, like moving his whole sort of kit and caboodle down under, moving to a country where they all speak the lingo. That's got to be great if you've got a young family, isn't it? Sort of appreciate, Ellis, you're some way off having a young family yourself, but
yeah, a little bit.
As a young lad yourself, the idea of your family moving down to Australia and giving you that quality of lifestyle, I mean, mate, that must get your that must get your eyes opening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a whole family moving there. I mean, it'd be lovely to have that money to say, right, we're off to Australia, we're moving that. But yeah, good on him.
Yeah, go back to what Charlie was saying there about Stockport. We'll have a little bit of a Stockport conversation later, Ellis. But have you been have you ever been to Stockport away? I know Martin. I'm pretty sure Martin, you've told me you've been to Stockport away, and Joe, likewise, you've been to Stockport away. He's used those words banana skin, hasn't he, Charlie, in his summary? If you've got someone like Charlie Austin with his kind of football career behind him, sort of mentioning that, kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It does, and the way they play, and it is a hostile atmosphere, which they're not always the friendliest crowd to play in front of, so that can play a part. But they're also just a very good team. Regardless of how they started the season, the way they played last year, the players they've got, very dangerous. They can score goals. The way they played in the FA Cup against teams higher than them, they did not look out of place at all. So It's going to be a very, very tough game.
Yeah. Well, as I say, we'll come back on to Stockport. I'm beavering away in the background, trying to bring both Honor and Keelan on. Appreciate we've got the head honchos from Swindon Town Women's Football Club listening in as well, guys. If there's anything, I don't know if you're in the company of both Honor and Keelan, but if there's anything we can do to get those guys on speaking, that will be fantastic. Keelan, just received your message, mate. I assure you nobody has temporarily blocked you from the space, but I'll tell you what I'll try and do. I will try and cancel your invitation, and we'll try and get you back on. If you just bear with us whilst we are inevitably the Gremlins of a live show are here for all to see. Whilst Keelan's beavering away in the background, delighted to confirm we've got Honor on with us. Honor, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm over the moon, Honor. It's been ages since I spoke to you. You'll probably remember lacing a penalty past me at the Low Stranger Shield, and I think both. I'm sure it was either yourself. Both yourself and Gypsy were playing that day, and I'm pretty sure you were on the opposing side. That seems like forever and a day ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure it's actually my Twitter profile picture as well, just to rub salt in the wound even more.
Just to rub salt. Yeah, you sent me totally the wrong way, didn't you? Totally the wrong way. Right, we'll let's see if we can get Keelan on via the main account. Keelan, good evening. How are you?
You can hear me all right?
Oh, yes, you are. You are. Good evening, Keelan. So listen, Keelan and Honor, both of you, unmute your mic. So this is a really, really exciting week for Swindon Town women, isn't it? We've got there's been a stellar announcement. We talked about it on the day that the news broke. We were live at the county ground when we first got whispers of it, and then we were able to talk a little bit to Tom Hartley, and then we followed up the following Wednesday in a little bit more detail. But so essentially a story of attracting pretty significant backing and bringing more of Swindon Town Women's Football Club closer to the county ground. So which of you two want to lead on this and sort of give us put the meat on the bones?
I think KP's got the behind the scenes knowledge on this one.
Yeah, obviously, yes, the committee's been working hard in the background to try and get us back in Swindon as much as possible. For players like Honor, essentially, that's what we're all about, trying to get girls to play to a crowd. So, so Nationwide have kindly made a very significant donation to us to allow us to pay to use Foundation Park for 4 games this season. And then there's ongoing talks around fixtures, trying to get 2 games at the county ground, as you will see from the advisory board. As ever, we're trying to be pressures of Marcus's pitch. So just trying to tinker that through the committee are. But yeah, that's the plan.
It's wonderful, wonderful news. I mean, Keelan, it's interesting because on the day that this news broke, we had a sort of 5-strong panel broadcasting a match day show at the County Ground live from the Legends Lounge, and to an individual, the first sort of barrier, if you will, of entry to Swindon Town Women's Football Club from all of those that were sat around the table was proximity.
Yeah.
And the fact that so many games were being played in Fairford, and that people feel that they kind of feel that they need to see the Women's Football Club playing their games in Swindon, both in terms of it feeling like more of a legitimate part of our club, for want of a better word, but also just in terms of the convenience of the County Ground being right at the heart of our community. So does that wash with yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved in the club since the 19-20 COVID season, and the manager at the time then, J. Lloyd Davies, who left in the summer to go to Sweden, is one of his aspirations to try to get us back into Swindon. Obviously, as head manager, head coach, he's obviously pushing committee to try and get us back in. We're having chats with other non-league men's clubs around the grounds. We had chats with councils. Ironically enough, the night my wife was given birth, I was actually on a Skype chat, Teams chat, to a parish council trying to tender an offer for £500,000 stadium to be built that we could play at, where we would get significant funding to build it because of the level we play at. Unfortunately, they declined, but with everything, it was silver lining. So, lucky enough for us, with the ownership change in the club, they're obviously pushing to try and get more of us playing at Swindon. And the starting point for that is us at Foundation Park, which is great. If you look at other teams in our league, the National League, I think Newcastle last year got 20,000 to a home game. Portsmouth this year got 3,000 to a pre-season game. Now, we're not at that stage yet, but that's our aspiration, to push towards that. So the starting point is to get a couple of hundred at Foundation Park, and then obviously if we can get a couple of thousand at County Ground, we get a game there, that will help us to say that this is financially viable, and therefore there's a reason for us to be playing here, rather than it just being a show for the sake of it.
So, Honor, I mean, we go back to mine and your glorious match at the County Ground. It's one thing playing at the County Ground, isn't it? An empty County Ground. It's and the lads that played during the COVID lockdown season have actually said this as well. Like, from the men's first team perspective, one thing playing at a lovely stadium, it's another thing playing in front of a crowd, isn't it? Honor, what would it mean to you, Honor, in terms of a crowd? How, like, just sort of help me understand the sort of psyche, how that would literally have a tangible impact in your approach to a match day and your impact on the pitch.
Yeah, I think at first, because normally we're used to playing in front of not very many people, so parents, friends, any family that want to come and watch, because that's the people who are normally interested and willing to kind of travel to watch. But having a crowd would be different at first, but I think it's something we could quickly get used to, especially if we know these people are supporting us, willing to watch us, which is great. It's what we want at the end of the day, because it's kind of everyone's dream to be a footballer, and part of being a footballer is playing in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a great feeling for us to know we're going to walk out and there'll be, start off like with maybe 50 people, it builds up to 100, and then like KP was talking about getting 3,000. It would just be really good for the players to know that there are people who care, people want to see us, people want to see us succeed. So in terms of mentality, I think it would actually do us well and be a good thing.
I think it's really interesting, Honor, actually. I think the sentiment amongst the Swindon Town supporter base is obvious. Like, everybody wants Swindon Town Women's Football Club to succeed. Everybody that goes to a game, I think if you did a straw poll, you're going to be very, very surprised if there is a number that gets anywhere out of single digits about people that don't wish you any well. The trick is obviously, converting that sort of like, that goodwill into active interest. I mean, from your perspective, Honor, as a player, what do you feel are the boundaries of entry for football fans? Because you're a regular attendee, obviously, at the County Ground watching, the first team. You've always been involved in the club. I often see your face at away games, and I'm usually a bit too bashful to come over and say hello because you've always got people with you. But what do you feel are the barriers to entry, and what would you say to people, you know, in terms of pushing those barriers aside?
I think obviously the main barrier that we have spoken about is where we currently play our home matches. Although Fairford isn't that far away, it's still a good, you know, half an hour, 25 minutes for most people further. And it's, if you just want to pop along and see what's going on, it's quite a way to go. I think that's definitely one barrier. Another would maybe be just awareness of when we play and who we're playing against. We do play most of our matches on a Sunday afternoons, and I don't know if people are fully aware of that. Just because it might not be something they know until afterwards. They might see a score on social media, and I think it's quite easy for people to say, "Oh yeah, we must go," and then you kind of just forget out of no real reason. It just happens, and I think that's probably it. To be honest, I think people just need to be more aware. There needs to be maybe a little bit more promotion on
Yeah.
terms of games, and I think that's happening. I've seen loads of advertisement for this game, and if people come on Sunday and they like it and they want to keep watch, I'm sure they will. Then that's when I think people will then start to come to our games at Fairford and continue to, you know, when we get more games in Swindon, keep up their interest and keep coming along.
Would you like to see sort of, you know, more sort of presence from Swindon Town from a men's first team, or just from the men's club per se on there? Is that helpful or is that a hindrance? Because obviously you want to be attracting crowds based off your own achievements on the pitch, right, and your own abilities and the show that you guys put on. But at the same time, you know, there was a lovely festival feel that got kind of whipped up over the summer by the successes of the Lionesses. So we can't kind of, I guess, what I'm trying to say is you can't really ignore the fact that so much was done off the pitch to kind of attract people with that festival feel. Is that help or a hindrance, do you feel, getting the broader club involved to come along and support games and support you guys in your matches?
Yeah, it's definitely a help. It wouldn't, I don't think, do us any damage if we had people from the men's side come and watch. I know there's an active interest between some of the committee members and that, but at the same time, we obviously can't force anyone to come and watch us. But no, I definitely think if people see staff or players watching, then it will make them think again, well, we should go and do that. We should see that. We should see them play. And if they know there's going to be people like players or whatever, staff, I think the club's at quite a good place now where people know not just the people on the pitch, the players, they know the backroom staff, they know who they are, which is, again, it's just another thing in making the club feel like one and bringing people closer together.
Yeah, and so Honor, you first game of the season at the weekend, Selsey 3, Swindon 1. What was the takeaways from the game? They're not Selsey aren't necessarily a club that are gonna, if you're not acquainted with women's football, they're not a club that are immediately going to spring to mind. Can you tell us a little bit more about the game from the weekend?
Yeah, unfortunately I didn't play because I'm currently injured at the moment. Got injured in a pre-season game, but I've spoken to teammates and that since, and I think it was fairly, first game of the season. We've obviously got new manager in place as well. I think people were not happy, but I think there were some positives to take away. There's stuff for us to build on, and like you said, Selsey, not necessarily a club people might think about, but I think within women's football, there are clubs who you might hear and you do think just because they don't have an established men's side, they won't be a good team. But I think that's one of the key points as well. Like, just because they don't have a men's team in the EFL doesn't mean they're not a force to be reckoned with. I think Selsey are, they're a good side. I think they're maybe a little bit more physical. But I know there's definitely stuff that we can take away, work on, and it's all about building. We know where we want to get to, and we're going to learn and get there together.
Well, I mean, look, Honor, before we go back to Keelan for a couple of points, what what are your personal targets for this season, Honor? It's obviously, particularly given the with the additional investment, with more football being played both at the county ground and in the shadow of the county ground. Obviously, I'm sure you're going to want to catch the eye. Have you set yourself any personal targets this year you can share with us?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm just trying to get back fit, make my ankle not swell. That's a little one, but I'd like to, get a solid place in the team. I love Swindon Town. All I want to do is represent them. So I think for me, I just really want to work on getting a solid place in the team and keeping going. And hopefully by the end of the season, we would have played 6 matches in the city or in the centre of the town, and we'll have a solid fan base at the end of it and keep pushing to bigger things.
Well, look, Honor, we wish you all the luck in the world. I meant every word I said when I said, you're very, very visible around the county ground. Probably because obviously I've shared a football pitch with you, so I recognise your face. But I saw you at Walsall. I've seen you around, and I love to hear you speaking about our club with such positivity and love. So we wish you all the best, Honor, with your personal targets. And Keelan, coming back to yourself.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Keelan, coming back to yourself on the season ahead, it's interesting listening to sort of Honor talking about if you will, barriers. We're all facing barriers going into this season, but it potentially is going to be an interesting step for the ladies, isn't it, to start playing in front of crowds. How from a coaching point of view do you go about trying to help them get over that mental shift?
Yeah, so we spoke to Tom Hartley, obviously you know quite well. Came on this year's director of football. We've spoke about sort of like the resilience piece over this week, similarly to trying to get girls to come and do things like this, put themselves out there in the crowd a little bit. There's still that sort of aura about women's football from certain aspects of culture and society. So I'm not sure if that's a barrier that's in their mind, but trying to get our girls to be a bit more on the forefront and used to talking in front of people about their ambitions, like Honor's talking about there.
What sort of Sorry, Keelan, when you talk about an aura, what exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, like, obviously, if you put YouTube tweets up or comments and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that's. I haven't spoken to the girls actually. I won't get enough. We're talking about it as staff of how we support them. So obviously, some of the girls are quite young, 16, 17, 18, 19. So for them to come on publicly and talk, maybe they don't feel comfortable doing it. So that's the first stepping stone. Can they be comfortable in a thing like tonight? And then can you then be more comfortable if you have a crowd, like Honor said, I think we played at the county grounds in the 19-20 season, and we had 350 people there. And on average, we got 80 to 100 to our games that season. So if you take that to the next level, where you got 200, 300, 400, can the girls still focus on the role they've got to do, which is just 11v11 on a football pitch? But they've got that extra atmosphere they've got to deal with. So that's something that we have to focus on this year, especially if we are trying to improve our numbers at games. We still need them to go and perform, because if you're not really that well versed in, there's obviously we play at the 4th tier, so we're in the top 100 teams in the country. So the girls play at a very good standard. So like I said, there's a spread of fans that go to games at this level. So if we want to take ourselves into that next level, that's one of the things that's going to come up against them. And we have coaching staff, don't have to do the tactical side, but how do they socially deal with that, psychologically deal with people on the sidelines shouting at the pressure that will come as they go up through the tiers, hopefully. So yeah, something we need to consider.
Yeah.
But I don't have all the answers. That's why someone like Tom Hartley's brilliant to have on side, because he's got a lot more experience in terms of that than I have.
Yeah. It's been a very, very interesting, another regrettably interesting week of debate around the women's game, but off the back of Graham Souness's comments last week, rightly or wrongly, the context of which they were taken. I mean, to what extent does that affect the psychology of the girls? Do they just go out on the pitch and get on with it? And is it more, is it like, for want of a better word, the kind of, do they leave the circus off the pitch for other people to deal with? Or is that something that affects them when they're in the changing room, lacing up the boots, going out on the pitch?
No, I don't think so, because I think you don't go to watch a women's game unless you are enjoying it. So lucky enough, we don't really get that much bad press, or I don't see it unless they get any other comments personally to their Twitter or Instagram accounts, whatever. So that's a good thing, really, in my eyes. But the Graham Souness comment, I think this is just my opinion. I don't think he's meant it as it's stated. We talk about the women's game, the men's game. I think he's just talking about at that particular moment in time, men versus men. Obviously, he's got a female in the room. I think he has Karen next to him, the ex-Leeds player. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they can take that out a bit of context. I think sometimes just when it's intentional, it's a bit different. But lucky enough, like I said, I've never seen anything like that at our games, because people that come to watch our games are quite happy that they want to be there. I think I'll speak to Tom as well, because his wife works for the Women's Euros. So I'm trying to get some data on the people that go to watch women's games compared to men's. And it seems to be a lot more family orientated. I think the split from male to female is 40 female, 60 male. I think it's about 30% under 16s, which I don't think is comparison in the men's, either League Two or Premier League. So I think it's a bit more family orientated and friendly. So for us, if we had loads of schoolgirls that want to come and watch and be aspiring to be those sorts of girls, then that's brilliant, because the closest professional clubs they've got to us is Reading, who play in the WSL, Bristol City, who play in the Championship, and then after that, everyone else is in our league, National League, whether it's Premier or Division 1. So if they don't want to travel to Fair for 25 minutes to go and see a professional game, you've got to travel an hour. So for us to come closer to Swindon and have that 10, 11, 12-year-old girl go, actually, I can go and play that standard, hopefully when she's there in 5, 6, 7 years, this standard is where the WSL was 6 years ago, which wasn't even professional. Yeah. So that's thing for me as a person, I leave this club in however many years, is have we grown the game to a point where a girl can see it and want to be a part of that when she gets older?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess here's an interesting question for you, Keelan. So it kind of links into the question that I just asked you, really. As a barrier to entry to the women's game, obviously the men's game has issues with. I mean, those that were at the game at the county ground on Saturday would have heard the odd unsavoury sort of chant coming out the town end. Overtly sexist chant, albeit the way it was explained to me at the time was that it was being directed at Harry McCurdy because he had taken his top off, as opposed to anybody else that had run on the pitch. But football is clearly, you are seeing players having to take the knee to deal with, intolerance at all levels, and so on and so on and so forth. To what extent do you feel, it is a barrier to entry for some fans that are worried about maybe saying the wrong thing, maybe that be criticising the women's game or passing judgment by the pitch, and that being misconstrued as, say, sexism? Would it be fair to say that for some that is a barrier to entry? Could the women's game? Do you feel that the women's game is welcoming enough in that respect, in terms of opening that debate and maybe trying to educate and be tolerant, as opposed to sort of getting on the front foot? I hope I'm making sense. Oh, I don't know whether the show has dropped out, so let's just try. And Joe, I'm going to see if I can bring you on. Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, mate.
Okay, it appears we've lost Keelan there, which is a bit of a shame. While we try and get Keelan back on, Joe, we're just talking about the women's game. I don't think that there is a problem in the women's game.
I'm still here.
Oh, Keelan, brilliant.
Sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if you got the tail end of my question there, Keelan.
I did. Yeah.
I don't believe there is a problem in the women's game with necessarily intolerance, but it's a very, very sensitive topic of debate, because we've gone from sort of none of the media covering women's football to then suddenly we've gone from famine to feast, and we're getting so much wonderful football to watch. But there is, you mentioned it at the weekend, the Souness sort of conversation opened up a very, very interesting debate around tolerance, around ignorance, around people just making innocent comments and those being taken way out of context, or actually people sort of questioning whether or not that was an innocent comment. Is to some, I mean, I would imagine if I'm of a certain mindset, Keelan, that to me might feel like a barrier to entry. But as I say, you got my question. I should probably let you answer it.
I was just saying that obviously I didn't hear. I watched the game on Saturday. I was there with my boy because my wife's the first team physio for the men's. So I didn't hear anything from the town, so I'm not exactly sure whether it was at McCurdy or someone else on the pitch. I can only assume what you're getting at there, but yeah, I think in terms of is it women's game, I don't know, is it more sensitive or not? I think obviously with sexism or comments, things like that. Obviously, I'm a male, so it's difficult for me to comment. I can only have empathy with scenarios where girls have gone through, whether it be, obviously we've had some of our players play boys football when they were younger, and then they get to an age, previously the FA said, you're a girl, you need to now go and play women's football. Well, actually, that girl was doing really well on a boys team or mixed team at the time. And obviously nowadays, I mean, you look around Wiltshire and there's girls age groups from 5 to 18s. And then in terms of match going fans to go and watch a game, yeah, I think the best way is to go and experience it. So, like obviously you said, we've got a game at Foundation Park on Sunday. Bring your daughters or sons down and experience it. And obviously, I'm a Arsenal season ticket holder, so I've been to games for a few years, and I stand in the North Bank. I've been to Swindon Town games when I'm right next to away fans, and you get different atmosphere depending on where you sit, whether it's more family orientated, more right next to away fans. Depends who you're playing. So yeah, I think that's just football, though, isn't it? It's what's the word I'm looking for? Very atmospheric, very passionate. So I think in the women's game at the moment, still it's very family orientated. Whether it'll go that way, I don't know if the people that watch it change. But at the moment, it's definitely a game where you can bring younger kids and there's not a fear. I don't think the game's overly sensitive. I think sometimes things might get taken out of control. I think, but again, you know when comments are made that are genuinely trying to be hurtful, and that just needs to be nipped in the bud as it is, and then moved on from.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I guess I'm sure it's something. One of the benefits, I guess, of Swindon Town Women's Football Club sort of being at the pitch they are with crowds is that if there is anything that is said that is way out of kilter, that can be quickly identified, and hopefully individuals, if it's at a stage where it's acceptable to educate, then they can be dealt with and ignorance can be educated. But equally, if it's something that's way over the line, then obviously that can be passed on to the authorities. They can be dealt with accordingly. But, well, I mean, listen, I mean, I said to Tom, Keelan and Honor, I'm really thrilled that there's this wonderful groundswell around our women's football club. You know, the more football coming out of Swindon Town, the better. But yeah, as I said, I'll take you right the way back to my very first point when we sat down and we first got the conversation rolling with Tom about the women's football club and what's happening with Nationwide. The big point from everyone around the table, everybody chipped in and said it's critical that the women's football team are playing their football either at the county ground or within the vicinity of. So congratulations, guys. I mean, it's a huge step. We're really excited. Lark Hall on Sunday, obviously. Is there anything, Keelan or Honor, you want to tell us about Lark Hall? And is there anything you want to say to Swindon fans ahead of that game?
Is Honor still there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Honor.
Hit
us with your big, hit us with the big rallying call.
Yeah, bit of a local derby, and had some exciting action-packed games with them last season. So hopefully can be the same, but in our favour.
Well, that sounds good. So we're talking Derby Day territory. And I mean, really, obviously, Keelan, I guess more of the same, really. Honor's very sort of put it so articulated it so well during this segment. You know, it mean the world to the girls to obviously have a crowd there. It would be a big sort of change in mentality. Obviously, more people there. There's going to be more people spending money, which means more investment in the women's club, which ultimately means more growth. I mean, I'm kind of doing the rallying call for you, but I mean, really, it's about getting bums on seats and packing out Foundation Park, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's different elements to the football club. You've got the play-in, so the girls, like Honor just said there, to have a crowd follow and watch. That's one element of it, and absolutely that's the most important bit, to give them the experience of playing in front of a crowd. And like Honor said, it's the local derby. So for us, our local teams are Larkhall, Keynsham out of Bath, Portishead in Bristol. But Larkhall's been in this league for a few years now. Portishead's come up last year, and Keynsham came down this year. So we played them twice last year, won 3-2 at our ground and lost 3-2 at their ground. So really tight games. So for us going into this game this year, this is if we want to get somewhere in the league, it's a must-win game for us. So having an extra crowd there to boost us will be brilliant. And then, like you said, the footfall. for us going forward, it's about showing that we have a following, and therefore we need to continue to play games in Swindon, because when we have games there, there's 300, 400 people, whereas in Fairford, they're 80 to 100. I mean, I just look now to have a look, and I think it's 2 buses to get to Fairford, or 26 miles, or 26 minutes to drive.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in Swindon, it's probably 1 bus or a walk.
And let's be very, very clear, Keelan, it's in the wrong county, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wasn't even going to get onto that. We're literally on the borders. Yeah, and we're too close to those ones up the road in Cheltenham. So, yeah, no, to get us back in Swindon is absolutely ideal. So we're obviously tracking our fixtures. We've got hopefully going to have 6 games in Swindon out of the 11 home games, not including cups. So to have more than half our games there would be class. And that, to me, hopefully is just a starting point. That's not the end. That's not just stay at 4 games throughout the season. Let's go back and say, okay, this is sustainable now. Let's continue to play games in Fairford for the inevitable. At Foundation Park for the inevitable.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, Keelan, I'll echo to you what I said to Tom. We want the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge to feel like home to you guys as well, okay? It's an open invite to you guys to come on our show at any point. We want to hear about your results, want to hear about your performances, want to hear from the players, want to hear from the coaches. So, where to find us every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Just jump on, let us know what's going on. It's open forum, buddy, anytime. So, but we'll let you get on with your evening, Keelan. Thank you ever so much for joining us, and thank you, Honor, for joining us. A real treat to hear from you both.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
No worries. Thanks for having me. And I'll try and get some of the girls to come on, maybe even if it's every couple of weeks. And similarly, we're very open and welcome. If you want to find anything about us, our website's been updated the last couple of weeks. So match highlights just gone out tonight from Sunday's game. Fixtures are on there, tickets, season tickets. So players, help yourselves. If not, we'll see you on Sunday, hopefully.
Lovely. Thank you, Keelan. Thank you.
Catch you later.
Keelan and Honor from Swindon Town Women's Football Club. Really lovely insight. And I'm pleased we were able to sort of, talk about, openly and transparently some of the kind of barriers to entry. Because I mean, depending on where you come from, there are some very, very delicate debates to be had around women's football at the moment, and they're such is the kind of political sort of environment that we've got in the world at the moment. People will talk about cancel culture, at the slightest slip of the tongue or misinterpretation of words, and that for some, I fear is a reason for some to not want to get involved in the women's game at this juncture. Joe, I'll get your sort of view on this as. Somebody, you and I have talked about the fact that, listen, from our perspective, football's football, right? There is quite clearly, the women's game will openly admit there is quite clearly a gulf in the standard of football you see in the men's Premier League versus the standard of football you see in the in the top flight of the women's game. But there are many, many different explanations as to that. I've heard people explaining the difference between men's and women's tennis, men's and women's golf, men's and women's cricket. It nonetheless, with this incessant drive to get more and more people to open their eyes to the women's game, it's making a lot of football fans feel uncomfortable at a time where there's no need to feel uncomfortable. Football's football, right? But I guess the point I'm trying to make, you've only got to look at and Keelan pointed out himself when Souness was talking last week. I think my gut reaction was, those are kind of misplaced words, but my immediate reaction was, I can see Souness getting cancelled for that. And you saw Sky almost immediately jump on his comments and kind of like make an apology on his behalf with the presenter. And then almost immediately it started and the ball was rolling. And then Souness was on TalkSport the next day almost explaining what he had said. And we're talking about one of the most decorated midfielders of his generation, for one sort of, slightly throwaway comment. He was getting absolutely destroyed, wasn't he? So you can understand people's sensitivities.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to waste too many breaths on Graham Souness. Genuinely, I don't think I hate a pundit or, to be fair, anyone that plays for Liverpool Football Club, I'm not a fan of, but Graham Souness more so than anyone else. What he said, it could have been taken, the wrong way or misinterpreted, but I think you made a point about the sort of perceived gulf in quality between men's football and women's football. I think, a lot of it, there wasn't many women's football academies 10, 15 years ago or before. You've got obviously the women's Super League doing really, really well at the minute. It's on Sky Sports every week. You've got academies at each of those clubs, so probably maybe 20 to 50 academies in England now, women's for young girls to get involved with, which is only going to improve the standard of football. Obviously, you look at places like America and Canada, on the whole, they probably sell out more games for women's football than they do for men's football. I know in Canada, for example, you can sell out a 50,000 seat stadium for a women's international, and maybe get 25,000 for the men's.
Yep.
Just because they're one of the best teams in the world, and obviously, now you've got the Lionesses doing what they did in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sat through it sweating as much as I was for the men's in the Euros the year before. And I just think if you're a family and you've got a little girl sat there with her England shirt on, getting as involved as she can because she's seeing role models that are like her on the telly.
Yeah.
It's just going to push the interest.
Yeah, and I guess this is the point, isn't it? What I would hope is that some of these people that might feel that, listen, they've been conditioned by a game that has its problems with intolerances, all right? I said the fact that we should have to see footballers taking the knee sort of speaks volumes, and I'm going to talk about that across a whole range of intolerances, all right? But you would hope that, let's say for argument's sake, a mum or a dad that is maybe, sort of affected or, might have sort of certain set attitudes that some might find utterly abhorrent. In fact, most of us would. You would like to think that the good that was achieved in the summer, particularly by the Lionesses, the profile, just the fact that they lifted the pot, their daughters' faces lighting up, and they're,
Mate, I think it's massive. It's literally massive. I went to Wembley a couple of weeks ago to see a gig, and I had to walk through the executive suite at Wembley, and obviously you've got pictures of, Raheem Sterling, you've got Wayne Rooney, Gary Lineker, Bobby Charlton, but then you've also got Ellen White and Ella Toone involved, and I just think that's just something you wouldn't have seen 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, well, visibility, Joe, is the kind of point, and Martin, I'll bring you in at this point because I wouldn't mind getting a point of view from you. I think, really, we've got. It's really important, isn't it, to have heroes and talisman. Even in the men's game, you talk about. I think of some Swindon Town teams that didn't really capture my imagination. Over the last, say, 20 odd years, and more often than not is because there was a kind of lack of visibility of sort of like a talisman or a hero to kind of hang your hopes on. I'm going to, sorry, Martin, let's see if we can understand you're having a few issues getting on. I'll redirect that point to you, Ellis, actually, while we try and sort Martin's mic out. So, Ellis, I was saying it's really important to have visibility on players, isn't it? Understanding of players and talisman and things like that. The issue that I've got is I'm aware, because I've played in a football match, that I'm aware of Gypsy Vivash. I am aware of Honor Fraser. A lot of the women's team, because of the marketing around it, the visibility around it, I couldn't really tell you much more about the women's team beyond those guys. I have a historic relationship with Tom Hartley. So that helps me on a personal level. But if I'm a rank and file fan, and I want to kind of hang my hat on, and get involved in the women's team. One of the problems that I've got is one of visibility, right? And Joe's point there about the Lionesses in the summer, and my point about there being so much more women's football on the telly. That's the kind of point, isn't it? At the moment, there's just not the coverage of Swindon Town women. Even on a comparable level, there is not a relative level. There is not the coverage, is there, at the moment, and we kind of need that.
No, I think you're spot on there. Like you said, if you haven't got the coverage of the games and everything like that, you're never gonna have a relationship with the players like you do in the men's game. Just simply down to the fact that as a fan, you're not as involved. But I think that's a great thing that's coming from the Euros with the women is that is just the coverage that's going to bring to women's football is and and all the young girls that was watching that, they can now have a role model. And yeah, it's only going to get better. At the end of the day, it's only going to get better.
Well, the good news, Ellis, is you've heard it from the horse's mouth tonight that, you know, clearly you've got a lot of young ladies that are part of Swindon Town Women's Football Club that are being encouraged from within the club to take advantage of the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge, the Low Strangers Pod, the Fools Rush In guys, on the sofa with Vic. You know, there are these opportunities out there for the women's club to sort of grow their It's kind of really, really important that they engage with it, isn't it? I mean, look, Martin, I'll bring you in at this stage. It's a sort of daunting prospect, isn't it? Because I guess if you're a young lady, you're playing for Swindon Town Women's Football Club. You're used to playing in front of 50 to 80 people down in Fairford. You know, suddenly there is this big drive to come play at the county ground, play at Foundation Park in front of a good few hundred, of aspirations to move it into four figures. It's kind of you're suddenly asking a lot of these young women, aren't you? That that not only is it about coming and raising your game on the pitch, but it's also about essentially being able to deliver the media duties as well, isn't it? Because without that profile, you kind of struggle to capture the imagination of the fans as well.
It is, yeah, and I can completely understand why, especially the younger players who have just come up from maybe under-18s football and their first season of adult women's, and they're playing at a very high level, a very good level, and they'll be nervous. Completely understandable. But for women's football to grow like it deserves, and for it to get more attention, these players need to be able to come out and speak when they feel comfortable in themselves. Because if there's a little girl who's gone to watch that game and she's interested in football, that girl talking, even if it's for the first time she's ever done it on media duties, that girl might become her hero, and that might be her inspiration to ask her parents, can I please try playing football? She might go to a club in the local area, absolutely fall in love with it. She could be the next Ellen White. So it just is something that is going to need to, these players are going to have to do, but obviously once they feel comfortable in themselves. If it means that to start with, they go with maybe a more senior player who's used to media duties to get used to it, to feel more comfortable, so be it. But these young girls coming up who are starting to get into football need local heroes, they need national heroes, they just need people to keep them interested in the game and someone to aspire to be. So I think it's great if these players are going to come out and start talking. Let's get the next generation involved. My nieces love playing football. The eldest one's 12, the youngest one's 8. The youngest one just played her first season in a little team, and I'm so proud of her. Like, I love her so much. It makes me so happy that regardless of what results they do, because they're a very new team, she's just so happy to be in a team, and it just gives her something really positive. And yeah, I think it's just gone in the right direction.
It's a tough gig though, Martin, isn't it? I mean, I guess just trying to play devil's advocate here, we've got a kind of facet of the beautiful game that is mushrooming enormously, and obviously we're asking our young women to come out and be willing to talk to we're willing to talk to the camera, and these are young women that maybe haven't got lots of media experience. I wonder how they feel when they see essentially well-respected sort of pundits and otherwise being absolutely hammered for the odd sort of missed word here or there, or a tongue-in-cheek joke being taken completely the wrong way. Or I wonder how they feel about whether that makes them more comfortable or less comfortable, or more nervous or less nervous in front of the camera, worrying about saying the right things. To what extent is cancel culture a problem for some of these young women moving forward? Because you just want them to be able to come out and feel authentic. I mean, this is a segment of the show tonight that I was worried about. Now, listen, I've been a company director for 20 years. I've been a serving police officer for 6 years, and I am now a foster dad of a number of years with multiple young women in my life. Now, even I am coming on after seeing the likes of a Graham Souness, like him or loathe him, saying something and it being taken out of context. We've got to such an extent now. If you're out in the public eye, you worry so much about saying the wrong thing. But actually, you I guess what I'm trying to say is, to what extent can we all just sort of like relax a little bit here?
I agree. I mean, it is a petrifying thought that you could work so hard to achieve something in your life which you're proud of, and that you're going to try and help enhance other people's lives and help them in whatever aspect of the career you're doing. And if you make one comment, which is a slip of the tongue by accident, if you make just a mistake, because we're all human, if something is taken out of context and turned around, you could lose everything over something which there was no malice in it at all. Like me personally, I'm the same as what's been said. I think what Graham Souness said was a slip of the tongue. Like it wasn't the most helpful thing to say, but I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think that was malice. So for there to be that big backlash and it's like, oh, is he going to start losing his job? Like, that's someone's life, regardless of whether you like him or not. He's worked very hard for his playing career, and then after his playing career into media, and that could have all been taken away because of something that was said, which didn't come out the way he meant it to. And for him, like, it's a live broadcast. Like, imagine one of us trying to sit in front of millions of people on a Sunday afternoon, and then you've got that pressure alone, let alone, oh, if I say the wrong thing by accident, my career's gone. Like, people just need to calm down. If it's
Martin, let's call it as it is, right? Listen, this is Tom Broadbent Lounge is a live show, all right?
Yeah.
And so, our live audience is, when we're broadcasting now, like typically the sort of scale of the audience we're talking to, by the time the show finishes, we'll have a look at it, and our recorded audience will probably be sort of 300 to 500 people. And then we get an enormous amount of people that then tune in to our recorded shows thereafter, right? What gets me buzzing, what really gets my pulse rushing as somebody that worked in media for 20 years, what I really enjoy is the pressure, and it is a bit of adrenaline, of broadcasting live, because that you are only ever one little mistake away. That's part of the danger. But I know in my heart of hearts, I'm a good guy, right?
Yeah.
I've been DBS checked up to the hip. So trust me, I've got no skeletons in my closet, right? But nonetheless, there is always this kind of I think there's something very authentic in it, in what we do when we broadcast live, but I also think there is that certain risk that makes it exciting. But I don't know whether I'm excited by the fact that I might say something and someone may take, I may have said stuff tonight ham-fistedly, tripped over myself, because I'm talking about a facet of the beautiful game that, as a fan, I don't have I can't sit here and say I've got a season ticket to the women's team. I know that my season ticket for Swindon Town will allow me access, but I'm 240-mile round trip away. I've got a very, very, very busy life. The notion that I can then give up even more time and spend even more petrol money to then go support the women's team on a Sunday after having been at the county ground on a Saturday, for me at the moment is a big stretch. And I worry, just by making that declaration, that people are going to turn around at me and say, well, the comments that I made earlier about my interest to Tom and Keelan and Honor are insincere. I assure you, I'm very sincere in wanting the women's football team to develop. But I've only got so much time in the day.
Yeah.
But I guess hopefully you kind of get my point here.
I do. Right? I don't think
I shouldn't
you
even
really need to justify yourself, because there are other ways to support women's football. If you can't, like, there's a cost of living crisis, and in the football terms, going to a step 5 where I've been working at, or a step 4 where Swindon are at, are relatively inexpensive compared to the men's football. Like, you're going to play £3, £4, £5 for entry compared to 25, but that's still extra money. That's still petrol costs. You might have to pay for parking somewhere. There are other ways to support them. You can have all the best will in the world and want to go watch a women's team in the local area, but if you can't, then you can just like a few tweets on their social media, retweet their scores, retweet when there's a game, because someone following you might then be like, oh, that's cool, I'll go watch that game, and you're still supporting it. I don't think anyone should be guilted that they can't go to a game. Like, if I say to one of my friends, like, oh, the women's team I work for, they're playing at home, do you wanna come down and watch? If they were like, sorry, I can't, I don't have time, like, a lot of my friends have got newborn babies, that kind of thing, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're not very supportive of women's football, are you? And then have a go at them. It's just their life is busy. They can still be, I think it's great you're working in women's football, trying to promote it. I hope they do well. I hope they win that, and ask how the game went after. But I don't think people should be guilted, because everyone lives their lives how they want to. Everyone's got different priorities. It doesn't mean you don't like women's football, you're not going to support it if you can't get to a game. You can still have that intention and desire, but you just physically can't do it right now.
Yeah. Well, look, here's a question for you, Ellis. If as part of your season ticket holder Town High, you were able to, so for example, take me, like I live on the London-Kent border. I promise you this, I would tune in to Swindon Town Women every single Sunday if I could stream a game live from Foundation Park. And I'll go a step further. I would actually pay more on my season ticket in order to have that access to Swindon Town Women. Now, I appreciate that doesn't mean bums on seats roaring the girls on from the sidelines. But I've always been of the opinion that we have a lot of out-of-towners at Swindon Town, and there may be a revenue stream where, you know, it's more about sort of like tapping into, you know, digital following as well at this stage. Would you tune in, Ellis, on a Sunday? And if not, why not? Or if so, why would you?
Yeah, for sure. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a football fan and I'm a Swindon fan. So just because it's the women's team doesn't mean I wouldn't tune in. But like you said, it's with people living out of town. I think ultimately because there's not that coverage there, people don't have access to the games. But if you could live stream and if you could join in and watch, then I think that certainly would push the amount of people that would watch and be interested in it. That I think that would definitely help.
What about the screening of games at the county ground, Ellis? So, for example, you know, away games, maybe you couldn't make it, or highlights, for example. I mean, would you get into the county ground that little bit earlier on a Saturday if highlights from the women's team were being played on a big screen in the corner of the ground, or, you know, things along these lines? Like, is that something that, because there was conversations last year, wasn't there, about getting us into the ground earlier, and I'm always of the opinion we'll incentivize it. How are you going to get me in the ground and then keep me entertained at that stage? Like, I'm talking, you know, concept, you know, the women's team, you know, having highlights in the Legends Lounge. There's lots of opportunities, Ellis, isn't there, to use technology to get people engaged.
Yeah, of course, and you know, I would like to see the main Swindon Twitter account retweeting, posting about it, because on Twitter I don't really see much about it. But I think if as a fan base as a whole, if we all got exposed to it a little bit more, the interest would be there, and yeah, for sure, I think you'd see a lot more people taking interest in it and wanting to watch it.
All right. Well, look, we'll part Swindon Town Women for this evening. We've it's a fascinating conversation. Like I said, it's good to, you know, it's good to lift the lid on some of the more uncomfortable areas of conversation around the women's game, and feel that, you know, we can all talk comfortably about that. I think from that perspective, if we can get to a stage where, you know, everyone can talk in comfort and everyone can be comfortable with their views being challenged as a way of educating people, that can only be a positive thing. So, yeah, thank you to everyone that engaged with that on a really, really mature level.
Hannah, can I just have one thing? Sorry, mate.
Yeah, of course you can.
Just on, obviously, sticking with the women's team for a quick second. Obviously, the women's team wear a different kit, don't they? And obviously, they've got different printing on their shirts and different sleeve patches.
Yep.
What about getting, obviously, the women's kit and the printing into the club shop, just so you can see the young girls or boys on the terrace wearing the women's kits?
Yep.
I know that the women's kits, the Euros, the England kits were absolutely mental. In fact, I've got a mate of mine that collects shirts, and he bought all three.
Yep.
It's just, yeah, food for thought. I know that the shop is a questionable area at the minute due to sort of demand and supply, but something to think about.
I think Joe, I think there's so much that can be done, you know, with merch. I think, you know, ideally you want to get to a stage where you've got a uniform sponsor, you know, both in terms of the technical kit supplier. So, for example, Puma are obviously supplying all the kits across. That's great that you've got that uniformity. Ideally, you want to get to a stage where you've got a principal partner of the football club that is, you know, partnering across all the shirts, and then you've got that uniformity. What I'd love to see is, you know, I would love to see sort of set pieces around sort of kit releases. For example, we release a third kit to much fanfare, whether that be a blackout kit, this, that, and the other. I would love us to see a release of a women's kit that's got a really, really interesting twist on our history or our various colorways that we've had over the years, to give me another reason to go and buy a shirt. I'm not going to have an issue.
100%.
I'm not going to have an issue whatsoever buying a shirt, whether it's Swindon Town Women's Football Club or Swindon Town.
You buy it for the badge, don't you? You buy it for the badge. But
thank you very much.
When you release a kit, the amount of sort of advertising of whether or not it's even the academy or the youth team. I know the youth team have got a different sponsor to the first team. But like I say, it's just you can push a kit so far on so many different channels of social media. It's just a way to reach different people. And let's face it, you're a football fan, you're going to love a kit.
Hey, listen. As an individual that championed the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge, releasing 4 Hummel kits this season, Joe, you are speaking to the converted. Like, I will literally buy polyester. I ain't got a problem with that. Like I said, for me, it's a big opportunity. I think one of the problems that we've got is, realistically, at the moment, we're a League Two football club. The commercial appeal and the sort of level of budget that we are attracting in terms of sponsors is, and this is someone coming from somebody that worked in national press within football. That worked in on a national level within football and engaged with pretty much everyone that is anyone that was involved in football on a sponsorship level between the years of sort of 2000 right the way through until 2016. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, I can tell you for a fact, if we push ourselves back up into League One, the upper echelons of League One, into the Championship, then it's far more likely that we're going to have a uniform partner that is putting enough money into Swindon Town to justify being involved across the whole kit and caboodle. It's that's the reality of football sponsorship at lower levels at the moment. But hey, listen, I'm sure we'll get there. But it's a great point. I mean, it's a great point, Joe.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
But listen, no, not at all. So listen, let's move back onto events around the men's team, and Saturday. Obviously, we've already talked about Stockport a little bit with Charlie, with Tom, and so forth earlier in the show. How are we feeling? We've used the term, I think Charlie, I kind of paraphrased it, but Charlie's called Saturday in Stockport County a banana skin. I'll stick with you, Joe. What's your take on it going up there? Because it's another one of those fixtures where kind of Saturday's results not done a lot in terms of blowing everyone's confidence meters back into the green.
I mean, yeah, you're probably right. But at the end of the day, I think we've probably played fairly well, at least in patches, in every game this season, other than Harrogate. I think in terms of the squad, obviously we're going to miss Harry. I know we're going to talk about Harry later in the show. Maybe, hopefully, if possible, maybe get another striker in. I'm not completely sold on Tommy yet. I want to be. I want to be on the Adelaide bus and, sailing away. But I don't know. We've got Jakey Wakey, I guess, and maybe our boy Ronan can join him up top. So, yeah, I think we played well. It's just adding that finishing touch and just seeing games out at the minute. In terms of Stockport, I mean, I think they got like 10,000 fans, didn't they, the first game of the season? They've got a good backing. It's a half decent ground. It's a hard away ground to go to because it's so close. Well, it's kind of Loftus Road.
Joe, listen, at this point, we're going to thank Gabs for doing some homework for us. So Gabs has done a little stat attack for us. Gabs Benoni, who's usually on the St Tom Broadbent now, one of our regulars. And Gabs has said, right, here's some facts for you about Stockport. So in 23 home matches since October 2021, Stockport have only lost twice. So we talk about banana skin for very, very good reason. Now, I appreciate it's lies, and damn lies and statistics. Their average crowd is 7,000, so not a million miles off of, Swindon Town of yesteryear. They usually line up in a 3-5-2, but at home they occasionally switch to a 3-4-2-1, and their key men are Sarcevic and Madden. Obviously, both.
I mean, they're not bad, are they?
Yeah, that is a fair pairing. Let's be clear. Their XG this season's 0.56, 0.19 and 1.54, where they won 1-0. 0.48, 1.29, where they lost 3-2. They do tend to dominate possession at home, but not as much away. So yes, typical for the level. Actually, it's interesting, isn't it? Not a million miles away from the comments that we were making about Rochdale on Saturday before they came to the county ground. A team that get hold of the ball and managed to keep hold of it. But
Yeah.
Look,
I think
Ellis.
Sorry.
I'm going to bring you in, Ellis, at this point. So we had this conversation before Rochdale on Saturday. Let's call this as it is. Stockport can have all the money in the world, but at the end of the day, they're Stockport County. We're Swindon Town. I don't mean to be snobby, but should we really be going up to Stockport County concerned about the fact that we are playing Stockport County? We are Swindon Town, for goodness sake. I mean, if you get my meaning, we've got a better record in the league than them this season. They've only got one win. We've got the one win. We've got the 3 draws behind us. We're undefeated since Harrogate. I mean, should we really be that worried about Stockport, Ellis? Are you that worried?
No, I'm not worried, and I don't think you should be worried about the team that you're coming up against. I think you should just be worried about your team. And we've sort of got to look at how we're going to play. And that's one point that I did like about Saturday's game is Scott Lindsay obviously looked at the side that we were coming up against and adapted the team to suit with Ronan Darcy playing right back and sort of pushing forward and stuff like that. So we might see aspects of that in against Stockport. So to answer your question, no, I'm not worried. And yeah.
Yeah, all right. No, I'll take that. Martin, how do you? So going into Stockport at the away from home. I mean, like I said, we've talked about Madden, we've talked about Sarcevic, 2 very good players.
Yeah,
good enough to be forcing us back into kind of 5 at the back, or again, should we just be learning lessons from Rochdale on Saturday, sticking with what we've got? And giving them something to worry about, making them react to us as opposed to the other way around. Because again, let's be honest, it's Madden and Sarcevic. You go through all our feet. I'll take you Sarcevic, and I'll raise you a Louis Reed.
Yeah.
I'll take you Madden. And I'll raise you a Jakey Wakelin. So if you get my meaning, like I'm not.
Yeah. I'd rather we just stuck to what we did on Saturday. I don't want us to change it because we're worried about Stockport. I want us to build on what we did on Saturday because there was clear signs of improvement. And yes, as we've said a million times before, it's Rochdale. They're having a terrible time, but there were still clear and obvious signs of improvement. If you haven't won a game yet, no matter who you play, if you win, it's going to build your confidence up. So I think don't change anything for the sake of Stockport unless we get an obvious injury or anything. I think make them worry about us, make them see that we played really well on Saturday, especially second half. So let them worry about us and change their tactics and their shape to suit us.
Yeah, I'm just going to build on that a little bit. I mentioned this at the start of the show. I think what was really interesting was that obviously Jake Wakelin got a lot of plaudits for his performance against Rochdale. But what got me really, really excited about Saturday, I've been talking about the emergence of relationships on the pitch and patterns of play, and giving the new boys chance to settle in. What got me really excited on Saturday was obviously Ronan Darcy was a bit of a crackerjack moment, because I don't think any of us would have anticipated Ronan Darcy playing at right back and then playing as well as he did at right back. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding, bar a couple of moments where there were balls over the top, and you could see his positioning was a little bit off. But at the same time, he offered so much going forward. I thought Saidu Khan was certainly. I felt that Saturday was his best game in a Swindon shirt. Delicious through ball, contributing to Johnny Williams' goal. I thought Angus MacDonald was a real rock at the back. I thought Sol Bryn dealt with anything that came into the box. Sol Bryn was really calm, reassured. I thought Fraser Blake Tracy was outstanding on the left-hand side of defence. So, and I mentioned Tom Clayton earlier as well. So there was again, you can only beat what's in front of you, but that's not going to have done any of those I mean, the new boys were all impressive, weren't they? And it's going to have done their confidence
Yeah,
the world of good going into Stockport, Martin.
massively. Massively. Confidence is such a huge part of football. You always play your best if you're feeling good in yourself. The psychological corner, for me, is just massive. It's the one I like to focus on most when I'm coaching the players that I do, because I just believe if you walk out onto that pitch, no matter what level you play at, feeling like the best player in the world, it's going to do every other corner that is part of the FA model is going to be unlocked, and you're going to perform better. So I think there are only positives to come out from Saturday. There's a few learning points. Like I said, Darcy a couple of times out of position when we lost the ball and we had to then start defending. But I think confidence should be sky high for those players, especially the younger ones, because they really are putting in performance, and they're starting to do it week in, week out now. They're getting better every game, so they should be feeling so good about themselves.
Joe, I'll bring you in because we talked about this briefly at the start of the show, and there's been some this week about, some people have talked about the real nerves that they experience where Rochdale, quote, cut us open and it exposed frailties at the back. I mean, for me, there's real hyperbole in that respect. Two teams, 11 v 11, like you would expect that both teams are going to get their chances, right? Particularly when against the side like ours where we're still kind of bedding in. For me, I don't think that, and I'm not trying to feed you an answer here, right? But I just got to get this out of my head. For me, Saturday was, I don't think we gave them so many chances and in such a fashion that I was particularly bothered about the chances that Rochdale carved out. I thought that actually Rochdale's chances were carved out for some half-decent football, and they deserved those chances. And it was also reflective of what Scott Lindsay was saying about Rochdale being all right with the ball. Was there anything that you saw about those chances, Joe, that gives you real nerves going into the Stockport game? Like, are you really concerned?
No, not at all, really. As I said earlier on in the show that obviously I didn't watch the game live. I've just seen the sort of key highlights, but I saw two chances in the first half where there was a good sort of 15, 20 passes involved in the build-up to those chances. There was nothing that like catastrophic from us where I thought, blimey, we're lucky we've got off there. And sort of to that fact as well, adding to that fact, we had 5 or 6 chances where we could have scored more goals. It could have been a 5-0, 6-0, could have been a 6-1, could have been a 6-2. Like, honestly, there were chances that went amiss from both sides. We were just clinical in our prolonged attacks, I guess, or not so prolonged attacks for our first goal. But I mean, there's nothing that worries me. Obviously, there'll be a big crowd. It's a tight stadium. It's a close pitch. They've got a decent side. Probably, if you're going to be harsh, an aging side. I'm not too sure how sort of much ground that stands these days, because football and sports science has come on to a point now where a 30-year-old is probably the age of a 25-year-old 10 years ago in terms of footballing ability and capability.
Yeah,
so
let's call it. You're talking about Paddy Madden primarily there, aren't you? Like, Madden is a wasp. He's a goal threat. He's aggressive.
And let's be honest. If you offered us Paddy Madden at Swindon this year, you'd probably not say no.
Oh, he's just one of those players. Yeah, he's a little bit. He's got the McCurdy factor, isn't he? He's like, if he's not in your side, you love to hate him. If he's in your side, you love the lad. I like his aggression. I love the fact that he's got that fire in his belly. He's not somebody I enjoy facing from the opposition.
No, I mean, if I'm listening to you there, you've essentially just described Jake Wakelin.
Yes, yeah, you're probably right. But at least with Jake Wakelin, you know that he's got a few more seasons in his tank, and he's going to have a resale value, hopefully, of 7 figures by the time he's finished doing what he's doing at Swindon Town.
Honestly, give him a 4-year deal now.
Yeah, well, listen. We'll come on to that. Well, we've had a message here from Ellis. Ellis, have a word, mate. This Chancellor, this Barry Holloway Chancellor.
Yeah, hooligan.
But Barry nonetheless makes a very interesting point. He says Darcy on Saturday organising and motivating other players and hyping up the crowd is good to see from a young lad. I mean, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? We've got some characters in this squad, haven't we? We've got some lads that I think they've got good pedigree. They're confident in their own abilities, and I think we're starting to actually, as they're bedded in, I think we're starting to see a little bit of that characteristic come to the fore. But so what football fan doesn't like? I mean, Martin, I'll put this to you: like, what football fan doesn't like a player kind of like hyping up the crowd? We saw it with Jakey, didn't we, against Salford? You know, when we were down at 10 men, and he's rattling the town end, like he's getting into us, he's urging us on. If anything, I think we need a lot more of that from players at Swindon Town, because I think our stands can go quiet very, very quickly. I think if any of the first team lads were listening tonight, I'll be saying to them, look, more of that. Like, get into the crowd, because we respond well to being called out, Martin, don't we? As Richie Wellens proved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say Richie Wellens is the prime example. He called us all out, said the atmosphere's a bit too flat, and then everyone responded, and it just brought us closer together to the players, the staff, as a club. I don't really want to say his name, but I remember when, do you remember Jed McCrory, and he took over, and it was the atmosphere
and
was
his
getting.
famous roar.
Yeah, that guy, the guy who would DM fans on Twitter some abuse. He basically, when Kev McDonald took over, the atmosphere was getting really flat, and he came out and I don't want to give him credit, but he called us all out and said, look, the atmosphere has not been good. And then the next game he played, everyone was applauding and cheering every single positive thing our players did. We won the game, and it was a bit of a turning point, getting us over the line into the playoffs. I've never once seen any player or person from a club come out and go up to the fans, try and hype us up, and everyone just go, oh, piss off, we're not in the mood for you. Everyone always reacts to it, so I want to see more of it.
McCurdy last year was another great example of that, wasn't it? You know, McCurdy called us out last year, and we got an immediate response from there.
Absolutely. It needs to happen. If the players don't feel like they're getting, I know it works both ways. Them performing well motivates us as fans. Us as fans making noise, being energetic, motivates them. But sometimes we do need to be called out on it by the players. If they feel like we need to give more, fair enough, that's your opinion. You can come out and say it. You shouldn't get harassed for that. You might get one or two saying, well, play better then. But ultimately, we will respond to it. And if a few people in the ground start responding to it, people around them will, and it just starts to spread and spread. And it's only a positive thing for me.
Now, listen, in terms of responding to it, we've got a really interesting response from Swindon Women's Football Club to a tweet from John Saunders. So just to take us back a step to our previous segment, but John was asking, do we get in for free for the women's games with a season ticket? To which the Women's Football Club have responded, unfortunately not. However, if you're a member of Trust STFC or the official supporters club, then you do. So just to be clear, John Saunders said, do we get in to watch Swindon Town Women's Football Club for free with a season ticket? And the Women's Club have responded, unfortunately not. However, if you are a member of Trust STFC or the official supporters club, then you do. So if ever there was a reason for you to renew your official supporters club membership or your Trust membership at the moment and you haven't, there's a really good example if you have an interest in attending Swindon Town Women's Football Club. So if you're already a season ticket holder, get your memberships renewed. For those, if you're contemplating reasons why you want to do it, there's a pretty bloody big reason to be doing it. Well, look, I guess, so just we'll round off the Stockport County preview by just sort of like getting some very, very top line predictions from you guys. Joe, top line prediction from you for Saturday, Stockport away. What are you going with?
I'll go 2-0 Town, Wakeling, and a Ronan Darcy special.
Oh, I like the sound of a Ronan Darcy special. Martin, how about you, buddy? What are you thinking for Saturday?
I'm gonna say 1-1, and not because I'm a pessimist, but purely because I think, as we'll talk about a bit later on, the suspension and the change of the front line, I think there might be a little bit of difficulty scoring goals, and I think we're still a little bit frail at the back at times. So I think 1-1, and I'd be happy going somewhere like that and getting a point.
Well, we're after the watershed, Martin, and to quote Harry McCurdy, you sound like a pussy geezer.
I am, Hannahs, I am.
Ellis Holloway, what are you saying for Saturday?
I'm going the total opposite of that, and I'll be disappointed if it's anything under 3-0 for Swindon.
Oh, 3-0 away, Dave.
3-0 again.
Well, that certainly makes me £200 train ticket up from London more bearable if you've ended up being smash free in away from home. I'm going to go with an edgy 2-1 that is reminiscent of Sutton United last year, where we looked really, really comfortable. They score, and it all gets a little bit edgy. But look, we'll park Stockport County. We'll move on to the ongoing striker chase. So Tyree Simpson heavily linked to Swindon Town over the last few weeks, mainly because every single Swindon Town in their right mind, every single Swindon Town fan in their right mind has been clamouring for the return of Tyree Simpson and laughing at the kind of sums of money that Ipswich claim to be requesting for Tyrese. And then lo and behold, the £600,000 fee that Ipswich have been demanding for Tyrese, it appears Huddersfield have stumped up the Reddies and appear to be willing to take our former loanee to the Gal Farm Stadium before the end of the transfer window. According to journalist Ryan Whelan, Ryan Whelan has stated that Swindon Town are indeed now back to square one in the striker chase. Now, Scott Lindsay's come out this week and said there are a number of strikers on the Swindon Town radar. That it is a priority getting one of them through the door, and that their background checks continue. There was me talking about DBS checks last week, but it's good to see that the football club are dipping into character checks and things like that, making sure they're getting the right characters through the door. I guess who wants to chip in on this? Ellis, I'll get your point of view really. Tyree Simpson, £500,000 to £600,000 to Huddersfield. I mean, obviously, Kane Kessler-Hayden's gone there. They were good friends last year, weren't they? They attended the Swindon Walsall game together towards the end of last season in our push for automatic promotion. I was surprised to see that Huddersfield had stumped up that sort of level of bid, but I mean, it'd be a real shame, wouldn't it? I think for Tyrese to go there. There seems to be a suggestion that Tyrese, that he's pretty confident that he'll be playing first team football, but I mean, the lad's hardly kicked a ball for 6 months. Is he really going to go there and be slotting straight in and around their first team?
No, I don't. I don't think he will be. Like you said, he hasn't played for 6 months, so it would be great to see him back in a Town shirt, even if that's on loan from Huddersfield. But yeah, I'd love to see him come back for sure.
I mean, I'm in mixed minds about it, to be honest with you, Ellis. I don't know whether I would want to see Tyrese come back for us to essentially polish him up to then send him back to Huddersfield. I think I would prefer to see us sort of, change our targets and start focusing more on bringing, permanent entities into the county grant if they're available. But they've talked about, I mean, Martin, the gaffer's talked this week, hasn't he, about slim markets, or lean markets. I'm trying to remember the correct vernacular for it, but it doesn't seem, whilst he's saying there are a number of targets that they're looking at, it doesn't seem like we are blessed with choice presently. So would in your mind, would you take Tyree Simpson if you were offered him on loan versus someone from this kind of like slim market that's out there?
I definitely would, because I feel like the first half of the season he was with us, his development and improved drastically. He really proved that he can do it at that level. I think for his own personal development, half a season or so in League Two again would do him no harm. I understand your point that you wouldn't want us to polish him up again, get him back to where he was, and he leaves. But ultimately, we do lack a big physical presence up front. We like his pace, his finishing. I would love to see him back. I don't think it will happen. I can't imagine if he goes to Huddersfield that they'll loan him back to us. I think they're more likely to send him to maybe a League One club, because they might think he's already proved himself at League Two and he's ready for that next step. But ultimately, the way he's been treated, he's a young man, and I just hope it works out well for him. He can still have a really good career, because I think he was treated disgustingly. So removing my Swindon hat, I think absolutely. I just hope wherever he ends up, it just goes really well for him, and he can have that career he deserves.
I think this is the thing. Yeah, I mean, you look at it pragmatically. If he goes to Huddersfield, it's not like we've got, all right, okay. So we've kind of helped out a bit with Romney Critchlow and perhaps more successfully with Romani Edmonds Green, but it's not like we're any kind of sort of feeder club, for want of a better word. You know, it's not like we're
No.
getting all their youngsters coming down to the county ground. We've had an all right record, but I mean, you know, if they really want to develop an asset, is it realistic that you could see them sort of spend £500,000 on a player and then risk sticking him into League Two, where he's already proved himself, and the risk of picking up an injury in League Two? I mean, it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't sort of seem to make an awful lot of sense to me.
No, to spend 600 grand on a player to then just send him on loan to League Two doesn't make a lot of sense. If they offered him maybe a 5-year contract and they just have absolute belief in him, then maybe at a stretch you could. But just who spends 600 grand on a player and then sends them to League Two? You clearly believe there's a lot of talent in there, so you're going to put them in a more technical division like League One.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you look at their squad as well, they've got sort of 2 forward players as it is. That's it in the entire squad, first team. They've got Jordan Rhodes up front, and then Danny Ward, who's not really a forward player. He's a winger. He's not a centre forward by any stretch. So they are crying out for a centre forward, for a number 9.
Yeah, it's a big step for Tyrese, though, isn't it? Let's be honest. You know, and bearing in mind, I'm one of Tyrese's biggest fans, but it's a big gamble, you know, to go from, you know, he would have gone on to score 20 goals for us. The reality is he didn't. All right, he played half the season for us and then spent the rest of the season sat in the stiffs at Ipswich through no other reason than Ipswich, you know, wanted to stick him there, right? So to then go from there straight into, you know, the Championship mix with Huddersfield. I mean, you know, their fans' expectations are going to be so much higher, aren't they? So much higher. I just want to pick up on a tweet that we've just got from Dan here. So Dan's digging us out a little bit here, boys. He's saying, how can you say we don't have a physical striker when we have Adeloy, 6'2" and massive, who's only started the Harrogate game, which was a write-off for everyone, and a cup game with the kids. Crazy how people have written him off already. Give the lad a chance. FFS. Now listen, Dan, I'm with you, mate. Let me tell you this. I don't mind telling you, and I'm sure Tommy won't mind telling you guys this either. Spent some time with Tommy in passing, purely casually, not an official media gig. We just got chatting after the game, and the thing that really impressed me about Tommy Adeloy when I was talking to him was he's got a real kind of steely confidence about him. You know, I talked to him about his key attributes and his finishing. I said, obviously, look, you know, as fans, we're not idiots. We watch you in your finishing drills. You're absolutely deadly. Like, you very rarely miss the target. Talked about finishing, obviously, as you would hope for a striker, being one of his key attributes. He is completely certain that if he gets a chance and he gets his first goal away, he'll get on a streak. So, I mean, Dan, for what it's worth, I've been saying, as the boys will hopefully tell you, both off air and on air on our match day coverage, I've been a big champion of Tommy Adeloy as a number 9 with McCurdy and Wakelin playing off him. It's something that I would love to see. However, to your point, Dan, it's not just us. I wouldn't necessarily say that we are. It's not like we're writing Adeloy off. I think it's just the fact that the club themselves have come out. I mean, boys, correct me if I'm wrong, but the club have come out themselves and said, look, they want another big striker in that kind of number 9 mould, and if they're in the market for one, you know, look no further than Tyrese Simpson. You know, mainly because he'll hit the ground running. The fans love him. He knows the club. He's already got a relationship with Harry McCurdy, having sort of formed a partnership that would have gone on to score 40 goals together. So, but you get Dan's point, lads, don't you? I don't know who wants to follow up on that. Martin, maybe that's
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, but ultimately last season, for me, our biggest downfall was we had Simpson, a big physical striker, but only him pretty much, and then he left. We got Davidson, not completely the same, but a similar type of player.
Yeah,
we need at least 2 people. So yes, Adeloy can be that guy. He does deserve his chance. I agree with you there, Dan. But ultimately, we need at least one more, because if we're going to play that style of football where we need that big, strong physical presence, we can't just rely on one guy, because if he's out of form, if he gets injured, then what do we have? We need that second option. And if the club want another striker, then I think if we're just going to talk about who can come in, I would love to have Simpson back. But yes, ultimately, Adeloy does deserve his chance because he hasn't really had one yet.
Yeah, sorry, Ellis, you were going to chip in on that as well.
Yeah. What I was going to say was, I as a club, I don't think we should be getting too focused on trying to get Simpson in, because it's seeming more and more likely that we won't. And if we're putting all our eggs in that basket, are we looking elsewhere? And could that hinder us finding another striker? And like Dan said, I do think Adeloy deserves a chance, and maybe Stockport could be the game to start him.
I'll tell you what, Ellis. It's tell you a funny story this week. I actually found it very, very difficult going out this week when I was put on the spot and asked to identify an alternative striker than Tyree Simpson, because of the nature of where we're at in the league, the kind of player that we are going to attract. And so, for example, I cast my mind back. Now, this will make me feel, God, this will make you think I'm really, really, really old now. I cast my mind back to, when I first started supporting the club. We were, we'd settled in well into the championship. We were challenging the top end of the championship, and we would regularly go and nick Reading's best players off them. And I can tell you stories of, for example, I just try and pluck a great example. Craig Maskell, who went on to score for us at Wembley in 1993. It was almost one of them. Like, we just went, we just go down the M4 and nick like one of their best players. But there were obvious places where you would go. You could imagine town spending a couple of $100,000 here or a couple of $100,000 there. And those days have obviously, sadly for us, come and gone. Despite the fact that football's never been richer, it would appear that we've never been more frugal in the transfer market, and for all the right reasons that I think most of us have identified. But I had a real job sort of identifying those targets, because fundamentally, I don't know a huge amount about the under 23 pool of Premier League and Championship clubs. And if you start looking down the leagues and you start looking at players that are scoring goals from, obviously, if you've got a player that's banging the goals in the Championship, he's not going to drop down to League Two. If you've got a player that's scoring goals, or maybe scored lots of goals last season in League One, but maybe is coming back from injury, then you might start thinking about, I can imagine getting him on loan, but are we going to get him permanently? Are we going to get another League Two club selling us their prime asset for anything other than a king's ransom? No, probably not. So it actually gets really bloody difficult and quite demoralising trying to identify another number 9. So I think that's why we kind of default to Tyree Simpson, because it's kind of what we know, right?
Yeah, and like you said, if you try and name a striker, you your first thought is Simpson, and you're modelling a player off him. And you look at Adeloy, he's a tall 6'2" number 9. So I would like to see him start, and give him 1 or 2 games, and then we can criticise him. But I don't think we've seen enough of him yet to dismiss him or say he's the next big thing, because we haven't seen enough of him.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pitch a couple of names at you then, particularly off the back of the next topic of conversation. But I'm going to mention 2 names, and those names are Oscar Massey and Harry Parsons.
Yes.
Now, there are going to be some people are going to be sat there now going, I'm burying their head into their hands, and I'm just going to imagine the mountain of tweets that I'm going to get, because I've had it all before, ruining him and this, that, and the other. Now, I'll tell you this for nothing. There are people that work on the coaching staff at Swindon Town Football Club, like Lee Peacock as a prime example. Lee has spoken in glowing terms about the prospect that is Harry Parsons. Yeah. And I think Harry Parsons is one of those players that as soon as he scores his first senior Swindon goal, it'll be like a shark smelling blood. And once he gets one, it'll be an albatross from around his neck. So here's the thing. I guess here's the point I was going to make. We got Crystal Palace next week, Crystal Palace under 23s.
Yeah.
Massey, Parsons, if they're amongst the goals against the 23s, and actually they look the part, Do you think we're still going to be clamouring for that number 9 when we've already got those boys through the door?
Well, that's a great question.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Are they ready for that step up? I mean,
was Tyree Simpson ready for that step up last season?
Well, there you go. There you go. I guess the answer to that is you don't know unless you try, and I think Crystal Palace under 23 is a great game to give them a run out and see how they perform.
Ellis, let me butt in here, and I'm going to bring Martin in from a coaching point of view, right? So, Martin, the thing that Tyrese got last season, and you'll remember this, isn't it funny how we all love Tyrese Simpson now? Because there was a period last season where we weren't loving Tyrese Simpson as a collective. Now, I'm not going to talk about individual fans, but just generally, Tyrese was described as being very raw. His flaws were highlighted more often than not on BBC Radio Wiltshire through fans' phone-ins, texts, tweets at the end of games, people digging him out, saying he's short here, he's short there. The similar kind of patter to what we get now about Harry Parsons. Are we better off not just giving Harry the run in the team that Tyrese enjoyed last season and going, look, we know there's a player in there. People that know more about football than me on our coaching staff know there's a player in there. And just saying to Harry, you're going to get that run in the team, lad. Go get them. You went to Chippenham, you scored a bunch of goals. Everyone was saying you were quality. We're not that far away from Chippenham as a standard. Just get out there, lad. You're going to get a run of games. Because guess what? Not only have we got the issue where, we need a number 9, but we're also going to be missing Harry McCurdy for 3 games. So are we better off just giving Harry Parsons his opportunity?
I have no problem with it. I think, again, he's still so young. There's still so much development in there. Like that was to be said about Simpson too when he joined. There's no harm in giving him that go. If when he comes on, people actually realize, look, this guy's young. Let's maybe support him, give him that confidence boost that we're behind him. I said earlier that psychological corner of his player profile will unlock, and then you'll start to see better performances. He won't shy away from tackles. He'll be demanding that ball. He'll be playing with confidence.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with it at all. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But unless he's actually put in that situation, you're never going to know if he's going to succeed or not at this level or beyond. And time is massively on his side. So I don't see a problem with it at all.
And like I said, people that know more about football than me at our football club really, really rate him. Now, I just want, he's one of our own, right? I just think we give him opportunity based on those two, And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to take you to. So we've got a brilliant tweet here from Toby Cook. Good evening, Toby, by the way. But Toby kind of nails it. I would say that this would be the insurance policy. Toby's saying, do you think this small market may be a struggle to get anything now? Is it getting this late in the window now where loans are the best option for the best quality this season? Well, like I said, kind of. Me personally, I think that we've got a couple of really interesting players on our books already. Young players, not a million miles off of what Tyrese Simpson's age was. Appreciate different physical attributes, but I think, you know what? If it doesn't work out, then let's lean into the loan market as our fallback option, because it's an interesting one. I mean, Dan's also tweeted us again, because Dan's saying, I think we should have gone after Baker Richardson, who didn't renew his contract with Newport. He had a great relationship, big man, little man, with Dom Telford last season, allowing him to score so many. And he can play good football. We've seen a Crew where he's doing really well now. Well, yeah, listen, I mean, Dan, the thing is, I trust... we're lucky enough. We've been invited behind the scenes. I've had a lovely opportunity to talk to Scott Lindsay, talk to Jamie Day, talk to Sandro. They've all been on our show, as you know. They've all spoken to us both on and off the record about the levels that they go to in terms of drilling into people's characters to make sure they get the right kind of character for Swindon Town. I trust them that if Baker Richardson was a doable deal, I trust them enough to think, well, the reason he's not here is either we couldn't afford him or he just wasn't the right kind of character. Fundamentally, we're never going to know, are we? But I do trust the management enough based on conversations that I've had with them to feel comfortable enough saying that on air. Listen, it's an interesting one. Look, we'll park Tyree Simpson because obviously his strike partner from last season is quite a big story that's broke this week. where Harry McCurdy's been hit with an additional Football League charge. One match ban's already been served. Obviously, he sat out the Walsall Cup game, and it's since now been revealed that Harry McCurdy has been charged with entering the referee's room, throwing a beverage across the room, say an energy drink or a protein shake, and causing damage to the referee's clothing, following his red card against Salford. I mean, God, where do we start here? Look, Joe, I'll bring you back in at this stage. I don't think there was an individual in the county ground on that day that wasn't infuriated by the refereeing performance that we saw that day. One of the most excruciating and irritating refereeing performances I've had the displeasure of watching, but doesn't really give Harry much leeway, or, you know, certainly I don't think we're ever going to be able to excuse him walking into the referee's room and causing damage to his clothing, are we?
No. Yeah, I mean, it's his profession. At the end of the day, you don't go in the office and have a shit day at work and throw your cup of tea at the wall or throw your cup of tea at the manager's desk, do you? Like, it's one of those things. He's got to try and, as much as he can, just keep a level head. I mean, the boys in the town end, and well, all three sides of the ground were giving the referee as much abuse and, you know, dogs as we could. It was shocking. It was a poor referee performance. It was clear to see that he couldn't wait to get that red card out, and I can see why Harry was frustrated. But he can't be doing what he did. If I had a protein shake to hand, Hannah's, I'd have thrown it at a referee for him just to save him. But he can't be doing that. He's in a professional environment, and he's got to learn to act that way as best he can.
I think really, Joe, like, he's got to kind of he's almost got to rely on the fans to sort of, you know, air that level of displeasure. If there's one thing 100%. That I know it's difficult, and everyone's going to be, you know, there's going to be a large chunk of our fan base that's going to, you know, be great apologists for Harry, because he is a maverick and he is entertaining. It's what we go to football for, to be entertained. And when he's on song, he's an absolute joy to watch, right?
The boy's a cult hero.
An absolute cult hero, right? But by the same token, you know, you would like to think that he's got enough between his ears that he would know, well, no referee is going to change his decision because I'm getting in his ear. It's just going to hasten his reaching into his pocket and producing a yellow and producing a red, particularly this year where there's a big clamp down on dissent. Now, I know we're talking about players in the moment, and it's an emotional game and all the rest of it, you know, but, you know, we're there for a reason, right? The fans are that we can create enough racket that, you know, that we can get into people's, you know, we can have it aired exactly how we're feeling. I'm just going to read this out from Pierce on Twitter. So Pierce has just said, regarding McCurdy, a huge player for us, and he brings massive excitement, but in my opinion, he's let the team down. He's also brushed it off with a joke on Instagram, which I think isn't right. People seem to let him off way too easily, in my opinion, and it's kind of what I'm saying, really, Pierce. In that, I kind of want Harry to acknowledge the fact that actually, you know, that day he would have been better off just like letting the fans do that job. You know, like, yeah, I've got to be honest. From my perspective, I mean, I mentioned before, like 240-mile round trip. I don't mean to keep on banging that drum, but imagine how I felt having driven all that way. And, you know, the first half almost felt like it just about started getting going. And then a red card comes out. I mean, no matter how far you got to travel, there is nothing worse, is there, in a game, would you not agree, Joe, than an early red card? You know, yeah. It just kills the game as a spectacle. It completely transforms the kind of fare that you're about to watch. Do you think sort of Harry's not only let us down by getting the red and then serving that one match suspension? The extent of what's happened here that's now come out, do you think that's you know, he's let us down further? Do you think he's indulged himself, is what I'm trying to say, Joe? Overindulged himself?
Yeah, possibly. The thing is, we don't know what the club have told him. If the club have said to him, you know, don't acknowledge specifics of, you know, what happened, maybe it would have been advised if he could have come out and said, you know, regrettably, I accept the charge or whatever, and I'm sorry. A bit of an apology, just because obviously he is a role model. He's probably the biggest role model at the football club. We've seen him over the last couple of weeks getting involved with young fans, giving his shirt out at the end of the game, inviting them on the pitch and having a kick around after the matches and stuff. So he is genuinely, I think he is trying his best to improve on his PR from last season. I think he's one of those players that he absolutely thrives on just sort of laying down and having his tummy tickled. Like he loves being told how good he is, and when he's playing well, if fans are clambering to him and feeding him, love and plaudits, he just continues playing that way. It's just the way he's built.
Well, I think it's perverse, isn't it? Because I think,
Yeah.
to a degree, I get your point, but he also thrives off of being told how crap he is by away fans.
Does he? I don't. Away at Port Vale, that playoff final, when he obviously missed the penalty, there's that picture that Port Vale fans I've been attacked with thousands of times. I honestly can't name the amount of times I've been sent this picture from Port Vale fans of him laughing after taking the penalty. It makes him, at the time, he looks a bit of a dick, but it's just, I think that's pure nerves, and I think he plays up to a character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I don't think his reaction to that penalty miss was a lack of respect or anything like that. I just think it's the way his brain's wired. I can't. Do I know Harry personally? No, I've spoken to him a couple of times. Very, 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 very short. You know that we did the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge end of season awards. I got to spend the best hour in his company. Got some very mercurial answers to some very, very straightforward questions. And
he's very dry, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Very, very dry. Actually, he's witty. I think he likes to cause a bit of a stir.
He also doesn't know. He doesn't appreciate. Obviously, he's come from clubs where he's effectively left because he's fallen out with the fan base or fallen out with the manager or teammates. I don't think he understands how much Swindon Town fans love him. There's such an endearment for him. We all know what he's like. We all back him in games. We back him on Twitter or socials or whatever. He genuinely he's in a place where he is appreciated, and I think a bit of accountability on Twitter or a bit of accountability on Instagram, whatever, and also the rumours of him going. If he goes to a Hibernian that he's linked to in a minute, they've got Lee Johnson and stuff, and his coaching staff at Bristol City, who are famously really, really harsh and really hard on players' attitudes and the way they sort of conducted themselves. There's no way that's lasting until December. Like, honestly, he needs to stay and just appreciate the love that he has at his football club and perform at the biggest stage that we can possibly perform at. If we get promoted, if he signs on League One, he still loves, signs on again, that's 3 or 4 years at the football club. He's a legend rather than a cult hero. So he's got a platform that he can use here to really cement himself just in club folklore.
Yeah. Well, okay, so look, here's a couple of questions for you. I mean, certainly Toby's jumped back on. Toby said, do you think under any other manager than the one that knows him inside out, like Scott, because of last year, would give him the same leeway with doing the stuff like this? And it's a very, very good point, Toby. And I mean, Martin, I again, sort of lean on you here where you kind of coach his hat on. He's he's a risk, isn't he? Not necessarily, I mean, not in terms of his playing ability, but it's almost like we get him. Like as a club, we get him and we make allowances for him, and the fan base kind of get him. And we've spoken about it tonight. Some of his behaviour we find really, really irritating, but we take the rough with the smooth more often than not with Harry. If you then transplant that into another side that is maybe anyone other than Charlton Athletic, where you've got Ben Garner, a former manager that actually got a tune out of him, it's a risk, Martin, isn't it?
It's a massive risk, and I think we've said about it before that a lot of managers, to be in football in general, especially at a high level with managers, you have to have a bit of an ego about you. And someone like McCurdy will just turn up and kind of just take the piss off the pitch. A lot of people just won't like that because they think it's going to make them look bad. But actually, for someone like Garner and Lindsay, the fact they've taken a chance on this guy who's an absolute rogue, he is just completely himself. He's not the football PR robot machine that you see all the time in the Premier League. Okay, we lost. I'm going to do a big essay apologizing to everyone. I think it's something that should be credited that they've allowed this guy to just be himself. They've got the best out of him. But it's now just getting to the point where he's done this so many times. This isn't his first ban for something he's done because he called the referee the C word on his Instagram post before as well, right? And he got banned for it.
I mean, the biggest problem that I think Harry's got with aspirations to go further up the leagues, and quite clearly he'll have those aspirations to play for leagues. There's rumours linking him to Luton Town and so on and such like. The issue that you've got is one of scrutiny, right? Because the further up the leagues you get, the more microscopic the scrutiny becomes. And some of the things that Harry maybe gets away with in League Two, he's not going to be getting away with at the top of League One in the Championship, is he?
No, I think if he does have those aspirations, which I'm sure he does, there is a bit of growing up to do. Again, I'm always going to be a massive champion, whether it's in football, someone I coach, someone I know, or just in life in general, to always be yourself. And it's so important for me. If you've got the confidence to walk around like he does with going to a ceremony and everyone in suits, he's in a bucket hat and sunglasses. If you've got the confidence to do it, do it. Be you. Be comfortable in your own skin. But there is a point where you have to start growing up because everyone's going to make mistakes. We said it earlier on the show as well. People say and do stupid things in the heat of the moment. Whether you're young, middle-aged, older, it's going to happen. But Joe used the word accountability, and that's. I looked at the Insta post earlier, and yeah, there's a bit of a comic value to it. Like, okay, that is funny, but also I do want to see a bit of accountability from him, just to see that he is growing up. That it's like, okay, you know what, I did mess up. I have let myself down. I apologize because I just ruined this rest close. No matter what I think of him, I shouldn't have done it, and I'm sorry. And when you do see players come out and take an accountability, I know I said I don't really like the whole football PR robot machine, but when you see accountability, and you're like, you know what? All right, cool. You admitted it. You're human. If you fuck up, like, apologize, admit it. People won't hold it against you. It's part of learning and growing as a human being, and that's just what I want to see come from him. And I think if he does that, then those aspirations he might have of going to a high level have a much better chance of coming to him.
I mean, it's an interesting comparison. Obviously, it's a very interesting Arsenal show on Amazon Prime at the moment. And you see the way that, Aubameyang was conducting himself at that level at Arsenal and some of his mercurial behaviours that in the end just sort of fractured his relationships with Arsenal. And it's an interesting comparison, Aubameyang and McCurdy, because some of the, so the behaviours are very, very different. But some of the, some of the quirkiness about their characters, you could see was causing friction. So it's again, sort of very different levels here, and you're talking about, you're talking about sort of somebody like needing to grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't know. I just don't. Is it realistic that you're ever gonna? I can't envisage the day where you're going to see Harry turning up in a club suit.
I wouldn't want him to. I'd still want him to be himself, but it's just when he has a moment of stupidity, just have that accountability to be like, all right, yeah, look, I took it too far. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. Like just something as simple as that. Still be you. I'm always going to champion that. Turn up. Don't turn up in a club suit. Turn up in your Crocs and your slippers, whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
that's no problem for me. But just have that humanity about you and be a bit more humble. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. We all are. There's 8 billion people in this world. We all make mistakes, but just own it.
He just seems to find a middle ground, doesn't he? Like,
yeah,
you look at someone like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He sort of jumped from club to club. Obviously, he's played at a very high level. Some managers just haven't been able to sort of to handle him. Look at Pep. He said that Pep Guardiola is one of the worst managers he's ever worked under. Had a shocking season, really didn't enjoy it because he's a disciplinarian. Whereas you go to someone like Jose Mourinho, where he said in one of his autobiographies, Zlatan, that he'd run through walls for him because he'd let him be himself. but he also knew that when it come to specific moments in tough times, he'd have to knuckle down and be professional. So that's probably where Harry needs to find himself. I'm not likening Harry McCurdy to Zlatan Ibrahimovic in terms of skill, but
no, but listen. I'm gonna draw a comparison for you, right? I don't think there is a Tottenham fan on the planet of a certain age that wasn't irritated to the absolute nth degree by Paul Gascoigne in his pomp. And to your point about am I comparing Harry McCurdy with Paul Gascoigne? No. I will say, however, relative to Paul Gascoigne in League Two, Harry McCurdy produces moments of magic, and I've seen moments of technical brilliance from Harry McCurdy over the course of the last sort of 12, 18 months that have literally left me breathless. First time finishes, composure, the moment, the Man City moment, again, in front of a huge crowd, massive pressure. So I've seen truly, truly breathtaking, wonderful moments from Harry McCurdy that, and equally I've seen moments of absolute idiocy in terms of his behaviour that kind of remind me of Gazza and some of the things that, Gazza's done. The reason I draw that comparison now is I would urge people to maybe go and spend a little bit of time watching the Paul Gascoigne documentary and trying to understand some of the complexities of his character and some of the things that maybe drove his behaviour that, actually infuriated us at the time when I was much, much, much younger, as both a fan of England and somebody that had a bit of a soft spot for Spurs. But you kind of, at the end of the day, you turn around and said, well, it's Gazza. In the same way, we're turning around with McCurdy now, aren't we? And going, well, you know what? It's H. For every silly moment, like referee's suit that's been ruined by a protein drink, we've got that wonderful first time finish, sort of getting his knee above the ball, over the ball, at the town end, or we've got the goal like the Man City moment, or, we've got the goals against, Warsaw, or, honestly, where, there's so many lovely moments. And you just think, it's just one of them, isn't it? Harry's Harry. Gazza was Gazza.
Harry can have a game where he doesn't score. And, the Orient game was the last game I saw live, but the man brings down the ball from a crossfield ball off of Romeo Hutton. Like, he brings it down and controls it on a back heel.
Yeah.
Like, consistently. He did it like 3 or 4 times. And I just think, the level of skill that takes to do, and the confidence as well in yourself to not even think twice about, what are the risks here? Am I gonna scuff it? Am I gonna take a trampoline touch and get dogs abuse from the crowd, or stop an attack from my team? He just goes for it and he pulls it off time after time. The man's got such ability.
He brings character to the game. Like, the moment he gets the ball, you don't know what's going to happen, and I don't think anybody on the pitch knows what's going to happen. But that's the joy of Harry McCurdy.
And Ellis, let's just rewind a bit and say, okay, so we picked him up off the back of, a couple of crummy spells at Carlisle and Port Vale, but it wasn't that long ago that Harry was a young starlet at Aston Villa, coming up through the ranks with a whole range of very, 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 very talented young players who are now breaking into or are playing in the Villa first team or have gone on to have sort of half-decent careers away from the Villa first team. So, you are talking about a player that got on the radar of one of the most sort of celebrated, youth academies in Premier League football, one of the most prolific. So we know that we've got a player who on his day can probably perform at the very, very top of, right up the top end of the Premier League. The problem, of course, that's held him back are probably some of the things that we have seen. However, like I said, when football's made allowances for some of these quirks, you have seen the likes of, the Gazzas of this world go on and absolutely, delight crowds. So, well, listen, look, we'll part the Harry McCurdy segment. Obviously, it's disappointing that Harry's picked up another 3-game ban. He's ended up serving four 4 games for the fallout of what's happened at Salford, but it kind of is what it is. We'll move on to Lewis Ward because there's been some rumours. According to the real EFL, Wrexham, Tranmere, Cambridge, and several other clubs have joined the race for Lewis Ward. So, how long, gentlemen, do we think that we can keep hold of Lewis Ward at the county ground if clubs come calling for him? Because Lewis really, I mean, he did nothing wrong at the back end of last season, and certainly pre-season. He was given equal amount of games to Sol Bryn. He was on the receiving ends of defeats as opposed to Sol playing in games where we've got sort of positive results pre-season more often than we didn't. But Lewis has found himself out of the team. Sol, had a shaky start against Harrogate. Wardy came back in, didn't exactly cover himself with glory against Walsall. Has found himself back out the side, and Sol Bryn's gone on to become a bit of a fan's favourite. So it's a tricky situation. Can we afford to lose a Wardy though?
Well, we could. I think it could put us in a tricky situation if we don't get keepers in, because what would we do if, God forbid, Sol Bryn gets recalled by Middlesbrough? We'd be good point. We'd be in a tricky situation then with not having Ward and not having Bryn.
They recalled him last year as well, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So we could be in a very tricky situation if that does happen.
Yeah, so I mean, it is very tricky indeed. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation on social media. We don't know whether it's fact. The club haven't come out and confirmed either way, but all this chat about, well, a lone goalkeeper, is going to be sort of, in his deal that he's got to be number one, that, he's got to play when he's fit and so on and such like. And that's what's keeping Wardy out of the team. There was a lot of chat about, after, Harrogate, Wardy was absolutely fuming and people drawing their own conclusions and speculating and such like. But I think in reality, we don't know whether any of that's true. But the fact is, we've got very, very capable goalkeeper that is our asset. It is a precarious situation, isn't it? What I'm trying to say, Joe, it would need to be a princely sum, would it not, for us to contemplate losing Lewis Ward? It's not like we have to sell him. I mean, what sort of sum of cash do you think you'd be willing to see us sort of receive in order to part company with a very, very, very capable goalkeeper who played a huge part in a solid run that we put together last year?
Oh, it's a tough question. I mean, what's the value of a goalkeeper in League Two? Obviously, he's a very, very good League Two goalkeeper. I can't even think how much Manuel Neuer would be worth in a Premier League or a Real Madrid, Barcelona. If they wanted to buy Manuel Neuer, it's probably about 40 million for Neuer. Like there's goalkeepers that aren't going for as much as a striker or a winger. You look at Anthony from Ajax going to Man United for 100 million euros.
Yeah.
If he was a left back, there's no way anyone's paying 100 million for a left back. So you see, I don't know, Tyree Simpson from League One to Championship, 500k for a striker. Not that I'd want to sell him, because you don't want to sell Lewis Ward. He's a very good goalkeeper. He's a friend of the show. We've met him personally, and he's a really nice guy. I think anything over 200k you've got to take. But
yeah, I think you're right. To be honest, I was going to say to you, for me, it's going to be around the 150, 200k mark. Lewis is an absolute tower at the back. Yeah. And I think in terms of his age, he's only really going to sort of, start coming into his prime over the next few years. So we're getting prime Lewis Ward. Like I say, he's our asset. I do genuinely believe that if there were any issues with Sol's form, that they wouldn't just persevere with Sol, irrespective of any deal. I think they would sooner see Sol end up sort of making his way back to Middlesbrough and Wardy get that opportunity on form alone. But I genuinely believe that Matt Bowdery and Dion Conroy's much improved form and fitness towards the end of last year, a lot of that was down to Lewis Ward coming in and relieving a lot of pressure by being far more willing than Jojo Woolacott to come off his line, claim high balls, command his 18-yard box, not just his 6-yard box. So, I mean, for me, it'd take a substantial six-figure sum, and in our league, I think substantial is sort of like 150, 200 grand.
The thing is, as well,
upwards.
it leaves us with a hole, then, doesn't it? As well, we'd have to
Yeah.
replace him.
Yeah.
So it's just a headache.
I mean, the other young lad that we've got they call him an academy scholar, but from what I understand, the young lad whose name escapes me has been a bit overseas with his family for a few years. Jack something or other. Apologies, Jack, if you're listening or your family are listening. I can't remember what your name is, but he's whether he's at that age yet to be able to sort of step into the breach, I don't know. There'll be goalkeepers that are available on frees, and I know Mildy's got a fantastic network of goalkeepers, and I'm sure that he'd be able to fill the breach. But at the end of the day, we all know what Wardy's about, and I wouldn't want to be seeing Wardy disappear. But all right, well, look, we'll park the Wardy and we'll just bring so the final. I'm going to try and bring Jason on to have a chat about it. But hello, Jason. Good evening to you, buddy. How are you?
Hello, Hannes. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks, buddy. I was going to get you to say a little bit about the big Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge kickabout at Foundation Park on the 4th. So the stage is yours, buddy. Fill your boots.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have opened my DMs so everyone can start DMing me. I have had a few through already, so it's looking good. So yeah, 4th of September, Sunday the 4th. So it's the day after the. I'm trying to think which game it is now. No, I'm going Gillingham. So
Gillingham,
yeah. So it's the day after the Gillingham game, 4th of September, down at Foundation Park, 4 till 5, 9v9. So hoping for probably 11 players each side, so you can have a couple of subs, because some of us aren't as fit as we used to be.
You speak for yourself, Jason.
I am.
My body's a temple.
Are we having Tom Broadbent Lounge sponsored sun cream available, by the way?
No, Johnny Williams has used it all. Reedy used it all on his head.
Oh, not good. Unfortunately. But look, no, listen, I mean, it doesn't require any selling, does it? Football in the shadow of the county ground of Foundation Park. We've been talking to the Women's Football Club, Swindon Town Women's Football Club tonight about the fact that, the importance of the fact that the women have relocated a lot of their fixtures this season to Foundation Park. It's a really, really lovely opportunity to get, to play football in literally the shadow of the county ground. And also for a few people that listen to our show, that like to enjoy our show, like to socialise with others on Twitter, to come and put faces to names. Increasingly, one of the lovely things about this show is that as with every passing match day, more and more of you guys come over to the table in the Legends Lounge and shake our hands and introduce yourself and put a face and a voice to your Twitter bios. And there's no better way to do that than at Foundation Park, let Jason basically kick you into Rose Ed by way of introduction.
Who's told you how I used to play?
Right, you're a filthy beast. We all know about you, Jason. You're a Darren Bullock character. There's a reason your knees are wrecked. So
more like a Razor Relic now.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't bleed the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge dry, Jason. Allegedly, because the contract was given to you by other people, it was nothing to do with you. But that's a different matter altogether. But no, I mean, yeah, brilliant opportunity. And Jason, we thank you for stepping into the breach whilst Mr. Collett is distracted by work matters. It's brilliant to have the kickabouts up and running. There is going to be another football tournament. There is going to continue to be barbecues, etc. And there's a whole host of conversations going on between ourselves and our various commercial partners and the club in terms of some other sexy and exciting things that we're doing for fans as the season rolls on. So keep them peeled, and when we're in a position to share with you, we surely will.
Can I just say one thing, Hannes, before I come off? So for the women's game, certainly for the Swindon women's team, anyone that, I mean, last season obviously they had the game that was cancelled at the county ground. I am a official supporters club member, or I was back then. I haven't renewed this year yet. But even if I was, I still wouldn't go in free. I would still pay so that those women can improve their facilities.
Well, that's very admirable of you, Jason. I think you'll find that most people tend to be like that. I know lots of people are very club-minded when it comes to the use of their season tickets, when it comes to claiming discounts or choosing not to claim discounts, for example, with a season ticket in the club shop. People just say, well, I'd just prefer to just buy the clubber, and knowing that money goes into the club. And it's brilliant that you take the same approach with potentially with Swindon Town women moving forward. So yeah, listen, I would look, it's clearly, I don't want to call it embryonic, because they're clearly much further down the line in an embryonic stage with Swindon Town Women's Football Club, but they're at a stage of their development where clearly they need our backing in so many ways. They need bums on seats, they need money in the till, they need our voices on the touchline. So I mean, any support we can give them, is going to be welcome, right? And at the end of the day, they're our club, so why wouldn't we?
Exactly.
But listen, I mean, I think with with half an eye on the clock, just coming up to 10 to 12, it's been a mammoth show. Plenty to talk about, admittedly. So wish everybody all the best of British that are heading up to Stockport on Saturday. Hoping that you all bring the points home. Keep the debates flowing on Twitter, guys. Like, even though the show's not on air, nothing we love more than sort of than tackling the big talking points of the day. Try and keep it clean though, and try and be mindful of your tone. And try and keep the abuse to a minimum, because I think it's been a fraught start to the season, and like anything, as the results have improved, some of the interactions have been a little bit more have been a little bit easier to swallow. But I mean, obviously you can say what you like on social media, but just try and remember that we're all Swindon Town at the end of the day. We all follow the same club. So anyway, listen. The Sir Tom Broadbent House, guys, we are a independent Swindon Town Twitter space, so the views discussed on this show do not represent the views of Swindon Town Football Club or Sir Tom Broadbent himself, unless, like tonight, Sir Tom Broadbent's come on and shared his views directly, in which case, well, do the math. It's been a real treat having you on, guys. I hope you've enjoyed as much of the show. Hope you, if you've missed some of it, the show's going to be available on Twitter for the next 30 days. Make the most of it. Look forward to catching up with you guys either on Twitter or this time next week, when we'll be back with another super guest, no doubt, and hopefully talking about a new number 9, and whatever else is going on in the wonderful roller coaster that is Swindon Town Football Club. But for now, take good care of yourselves.